This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
You are listening to the longest running, weekly, episodic comic book podcast in all of Place to Be Nation.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys. When you hear this show, you better run for cover. Klondike Bill's a sausage lover. Ooh, Hard-Traveling Fanboys. It's a weekly podcast and you better listen. They keep your ears in mid-condition. Ooh, Hard-Traveling Fanboys. 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 Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
You got a 33 and a third chance of winning.
Welcome, everyone, to another improvisational episode of the longest running weekly episodic comic book podcast in all of Place to Be Nation. I am Greg Phillips. With me, as always, is my cohort, Nick Duke. We are the Hard-Traveling Fanboys, and we are doing something very different this week than we've ever done before. Breaking new ground here on the Hard-Traveling Fanboys. And what we're doing is, we made a mistake last week, folks. When we did the rundown, we had an extra long rundown, and we didn't realize, because we didn't stop to think, that it was the week of San Diego Comic-Con. And all of this major news would then be coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. And true to the legend, San Diego Comic-Con delivered this year and gave us all kinds of information this past weekend that we didn't get in last week's oversized rundown. So we're doing another oversized rundown this week. That's right. This is a San Diego Comic-Con extra-sized edition of the rundown, and there was so much to talk about, we decided to bring in a little outside interference, so to speak. And we've reached out to four of the pillars of Place to Be Nation Comics, Tim Capel, Todd Weber, Jennifer Smith, Russell Sellers, and they're going to be joining us at various times during this broadcast as we break down different aspects of the news that came out of the comic book world at SDCC. And starting off, we're going to have the illustrious Tim Capel, who has been taking part in a terrific Conversation Comics series on the John Byrne, Chris Claremont X-Men era of comics. And Tim, thank you for joining us on this fine evening.
Gregory, Nicholas, great to be here with you. I am so thrilled to be called upon as your Marvel Studios correspondent, bringing you all the great news coming out of Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con from Marvel Studios. I feel like this segment of the show must be brought to you by Lucille Ball, Zima, and, considering my dinner earlier, the Bristol Stool Chart.
Excellent.
Speaking of the Bristol Stool Chart, let's move on to a man who has frequently been referred to as a 6 on the Bristol Stool Chart, Nick Duke. Nick, how are you doing on this evening?
I'm doing very well, sir. No 6s today. Although I did. Never mind. Let's just move past that. I was going to tell you about my oatmeal experience from yesterday, but that's neither here nor there.
You bailed on that bit in record time, sir.
Yep. I didn't want to talk about, gunshot splatters of yellow and things like that. So we'll just move past.
Dear God. Nevertheless, Tim mentioned it. We are going to be talking with Tim about Marvel Studios and their output at SDCC, and probably the biggest news item coming out of Marvel from the film side this past weekend was the reveal of the latest Thor Ragnarok trailer that hit the waves. That movie is next up on the MCU agenda. Tim, I'm assuming you've had a chance to check out the trailer and all of the associated buzz around it. What do you make of the trailer? We saw a lot of new bits going on here, including a talking version of the Hulk, which we haven't really seen to this point in the MCU. What did you make of the trailer?
How about that trailer? That's got me pumped. I'm not going to lie. I had a little bit of skepticism from what I'd seen and heard surrounding Thor Ragnarok prior to this latest trailer. I was a little bit worried they might make the Iron Man 3 mistake of leaning too hard into the humor. Hashtag Team Nick. Sorry, Greg. I know. It's, you know.
Do you realize by being Team Nick, you're also being Team Scott Criscolo?
A little bit, yeah, I do. But I think this makes me a more well-rounded individual. You know, you can't just put me in a box and say that I'm always this one thing. But in any case, this trailer is sort of instilled me with a confidence that I didn't have before. That I mean, let's face it, Thor hasn't had the strongest movies of the solo heroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not that any of them have been bad, which I think we can all agree on as well. It's not like any of these movies outright suck, but I mean, that first one, you know, got off on the ground running, off to a great start. Second one felt like a step back for me, a little bit regressive. So with this third movie, I'm like, all right, let's really, you know, go balls out. It's called Thor Ragnarok. You expect a certain element, you know, from a title like that. And I think they're going to be going for it. Very 80s feel, right, in terms of the tone.
Right down to the graphics.
The graphics, you know, very colorful. That I don't know if that's the score from the film itself or just something they're using, but kind of a heavy synth kind of thing going on. A little bit of John Carpenter or Michael Mann there. I've seen comparisons drawn to Flash Gordon as well, which, okay. Interesting. I think if nothing else, the effects will be a little bit better in this. But
let's not jump to conclusions. We never know.
You never know. I mean, there's a lot of things that still have to take place in post, I'm sure. But in any case, overall, it's I'm hoping that the story is more Walt Simonsonian, if such a term exists.
It does now.
Yeah, just that he was so good, you know, at blending Marvel's sort of cosmic odyssey with high-tech sci-fi elements and just classic myth throughout his entire run in the 80s. So I hope and I think it's going to be drawing pretty heavily from that as an influence.
Right.
We see Cate Blanchett as Hela. Seems to be enjoying herself in that role.
Yeah, I was going to point out, I thought, to me, that was probably the biggest addition of this newest trailer, was showing us more of her turn as Hela, because she looks like she's going to really be one of those. You know, I've been critical at times of the MCU villains being one note and kind of mustache twirling villains. She looks like she's going to be an awesome mustache twirling villain.
Right.
Like she's just looks like she's having a blast.
I noticed she was referred to twice in this trailer alone as the goddess of death. Now, not to, you know, play armchair booker or what have you, but I don't know, I kind of start to wonder what character gets a real chubby for death.
I believe that would be universe. Mr. Thanos.
It would be. So you sort of wonder, is that the direction they may be taking that relationship, so to speak? I mean, Marvel's death, the abstract concept of death, has been embodied as everything from a skeleton to an ethereal woman to a construction worker. So could be a little bit difficult to conceptualize cinematically. So I'm wondering if she may be a stand-in here. I don't know, or I don't think Cate Blanchett has been cast or confirmed to appear in Avengers: Infinity War, but you never know, right?
Right. It would be really cool, actually. I hadn't thought of that, but that's a pretty interesting angle if they were able to kind of use the Hela character, as you mentioned during the trailer, constantly referring to herself as the goddess of death, and put her in that traditional role of death in the Avengers movies for Thanos. That would be a pretty good bridge into that story pretty naturally as well. And we got to see Surtur the Fire Demon. It appeared at the end of the trailer. So pretty interesting turn of events there. They could easily have Hela switch off into that more Thanos-type role and have Surtur be the primary, what's the parlance that Jim Ross might use, character heel in the film.
Right. What else? There's Scourge the Executioner with his quick shot of it, but you saw his twin M16s, which definitely echoes a classic and iconic Thor story that I will be very, very eager and interested to see if it plays out. Nick, I think you will too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not to jump in here, but
no, please.
I was left conflicted by that trailer. I think, Tim, you and I are pretty well. We're pretty well on the same page heading into this trailer. In that, I have a lot of concerns about this movie, and they are not concerns that would keep it from being well received by most people, but they are concerns that might keep it from being well received by me.
I think I know what you're saying.
It's one of those things where, like, right, wrong, or indifferent, when I hear the term Ragnarok, I have a certain expectation of the tone and scope of the story, and I am concerned that the tone of this film will not live up to that expectation, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Yeah.
It has, like you said, a very 80s feel about it, which is all fine, well, and good. But to me, it almost seems like they're trying to take the Guardians of the Galaxy tone and formula and apply it to Thor. And don't get me wrong, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy tone and formula, but we already have it in Guardians of the Galaxy. So this trailer actually kind of, I thought, for me anyway, in terms of what I'm looking for out of this movie, was a little bit of a step back, because I thought it ratcheted up the comedy. But at the same time, like you guys are saying, it showed so much cool stuff that it's hard to... It just left me very conflicted, because it seemed like it was trying to show you a lot more of the humor of this film, which is what they're trying to draw people in with, which I get that. I mean, I understand that the first two Thor movies are not regarded by most to be among the finest output the MCU has created to this point, and that's fine. It's just I have concerns about taking a story like Ragnarok and turning it into a comedy for the most part. So I don't know. I remain very, very cautious when it comes to this one.
Yeah. And
I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence based on what I'm seeing thus far.
No, I hear you. Unlike you, I found this trailer a little bit more reassuring, just because I think the ratio of cool stuff to humor, at least on display here, sort of put me a little bit more at ease as compared to what I was seeing a little bit earlier in the development process. But yeah, I share exactly the same concern that we know these movies do rely on their humor. Sometimes they go too far in that direction, kind of at the expense and sacrificing the dramatic weight of, moments that they are actually earning. And
right.
It's sort of like, just let it play out. Let it happen. You don't have to, do the equivalent of like a dick joke here because you're feeling, I don't know, like people aren't going to buy it. Just you've earned it. Let it
exactly.
happen.
And when it comes to the character of Thor in particular, we've spent 4 films with him between the Avengers and the Thor movies at this point. And so I feel like there's a certain level of emotional investment. Probably not to the level that I am emotionally invested, I'll grant, but I worry that the humor of this film is going to undercut what should be a very dire set of circumstances that I envision Ragnarok to be, and that's my ultimate concern. And also, not to conflate these two, because this was a story that came out, I think, today, not during the Comic-Con itself, but then there's also the report that it's currently potentially going to be the shortest of all MCU films at just an hour and 40 minutes. And that seems like a lot of story to fit into an hour and 40 minutes. So I'm worried this one may be just a little rushed, and they may be erring on the side of picking up the pace due to the fact that, some people have found the first 2 Thor movies to be a little slow paced.
Yeah, I just hope this movie doesn't feel like another filler, another way to pass the time before Avengers: Infinity War. Which
right.
And I can certainly say, based on what I've seen in the trailer, I don't think that will be the case.
Right, and that was kind of the big issue with Thor: The Dark World. It was just a placeholder, basically. And I mean, yes, it did have some development in terms of the Infinity Gems, but I mean, if you missed that, you really didn't miss much, Yeah. So with a title like Thor: Ragnarok, it, as you said, evokes a certain element that you want to see.
Right. I think for me, as someone who hasn't really read a lot of Thor comics, I kind of like the fact that they're leaning on the humor, because I think that's what's Hemsworth's greatest strength. And I think, to me, when I think back, my favorite parts of both Thor movies were the comedy aspects, and the other stuff has been kind of forgettable to me. Like, I honestly can't remember much about the Dark World other than a few of the comedic scenes between Thor and Loki. So I'm kind of like, I get where you guys are coming from, and I would probably feel that way if I had, like, an attachment to the source material. But coming at it from a pure outsider's perspective, I'm kind of, like, excited at the concept of a Thor and Hulk buddy cop movie for, an hour and 40 minutes or whatever.
It would be like the equivalent of them making a Superman movie called Superman Doomsday and then showing you nothing but comedy in the trailers. Would be the comparison I would make.
Sure, yeah, I get that. I can see that for sure.
It's almost a shame that Hemsworth is as good at the comedy as he is,
right?
Because it's like because that is such a strength.
I think he's probably. They're all really good at it, but I think other than Robert Downey Jr., he's probably the best at it of all the MCU guys.
I mean, his delivery, that line where Banner is asking him, "Oh, how'd we get here? We had a fight. Did I win?"
Yeah.
No, I won easily.
Easily, yeah. That doesn't sound right. Yeah.
No,
well,
yeah,
sure.
and he's absolutely great. I think my thing is, while I like the first 2 Thor movies to a great degree, probably better than most people, I think I'm kind of like Tim is with the X-Men movies in that the best version of a Thor movie that exists in my head hasn't really been put on screen yet, and it's I was hoping that we were going to get closer rather than further away. And based on these trailers, it feels like it's getting further away from my preferred take, which isn't to say the movie can't be good. I'm still expecting it to be good. I'll be there the opening night, with bells on, so to speak, even though I don't own any bells, but that's neither here nor there. The point being, I'm in the bag for this movie no matter what. So, like, concerns aside, I'm sure I'm going to wind up liking it. I just don't know that I'm going to wind up liking it to the degree I would have preferred.
Yeah, and the inclusion of Hulk is an interesting choice. I mean, I'm glad he's here since we do get to see more of Mark Ruffalo. But I don't know. It seems like they're doing sort of a Planet Hulk interlude, at least, and drawing from that story and using that as kind of the impetus to get them together, which that could work. But
it can, but I'm kind of, I mean, and you can disagree if you liked him, but like I kind of thought that Ragnarok didn't really need any supplemental material. I thought it was plenty enough a big story, plenty large enough a story to carry its own film.
Yeah, it doesn't need it. I agree.
I think that the Hulk is in such a weird position right now that they're looking for ways to get him involved in more movies, and this is a more natural fit for him than it would be to put him in a Captain America movie, for instance.
That's a good point.
or even like Black Panther or somewhere like that. So I get it from that standpoint. I'm probably the only one, because I know most people, and I did too. I grew up with the Peter David Hulk, who was a talking, smart Hulk and all that. I've always preferred Hulk to be kept dumb, and I'm a little worried they might be wavering from that a little bit now, based on him talking in the trailer, which was cool, but I don't really want Hulk to be carrying on deep philosophical conversations in the next few movies, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
I think he'll still be a far cry from the Professor Hulk, so to speak, even if he is a little bit more eloquent, I'm thinking. I mean, we see that little exchange between them, which some rather astute observations from dumb Hulk there, but I don't know if he was the most eloquent individual in the room, but
let's just hope that level of intelligence and speech ability from Hulk is about his high watermark, and they don't dare take it much above that. Would be the only thing I would say.
Right, because to me, I mean, it's what makes the character unique, and also to tell tales out of Skule. I am actually not the biggest Planet Hulk fan in the world. Having read it last year for the first time, so I am going to be hoping that they don't lean too heavily on that source material. Personally.
I mean, it's okay.
That's kind of how I feel about it. It's okay. It does not deserve its reputation as a modern comics classic the way it seems to be held by a lot of people. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. And Nick, maybe you can confirm this. The last thing I had written down here about this trailer, it looks like we get a quick shot of, is it the Fenris Wolf?
That's what I was thinking, and and that's one of those things where I was like, it was funny because most of the trailer I'm kind of sitting there going, like just kind of wincing at the humor being forced in, and then occasionally I would see something that would make me do the equivalent of the Vince McMahon gets interested gif, where I would kind of lean forward and bobble my head back and forth, and the Fenris Wolf was probably the biggest of those outside the obvious closing shot of Surtur the Fire Demon. But if you're doing Ragnarok, whatever way you're doing it, even if it is this odd amalgamated version of Ragnarok with Planet Hulk thrown in, Fenris Wolf kind of has to be there, does he not?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it.
What is Fenris Wolf? I have no idea what this is.
Oh.
Now, Greg, not to be confused with Fenris, the Aryan siblings who held hands and shot energy blasts.
Right.
And menaced the X-Men.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Wolverine with Omega Red. That's not who we're talking about. Nick, I think you better take Fenris Wolf.
Okay. So
because I'm struggling.
This is going to be a tough one. Okay, so the Fenris Wolf in the comics is a creature that exists that is said to have been at one point the bastard offspring of Loki and a giantess. Now, why their offspring took the form of a wolf, it's really not for me to say. But the point is, he's meant to represent this bastardization of all things wrong with the realms. This weird outcast of Asgardians, being that Loki is his father and a giantess is his mother. And Loki himself is a bastard. So almost like the bastard of a bastard. And he is outcast and viewed as an abomination. And he is eternally imprisoned. And there is a prophecy foretold that when Ragnarok finally comes down, he will be loosed from his bonds and devour Odin alive. And that was kind of one of the major things, is that whenever Fenris Wolf popped up, you always knew that Ragnarok was kind of right there. And I'm sure I've missed a lot of stuff there, but that's my basic understanding of the Fenris Wolf.
I got you. Now, which is more of a bastard by that point? Would it be Fenris Wolf, or would it be Triple H when he costs Austin a title?
Well, that's a great question.
Well, Triple H was not the bastard of a bastard,
right?
Or the son of a son of a gun. In the way that,
dang it!
All right.
You've awakened the beast, Jim.
I'm going to bail on that bit too, but
call him a natural.
Anyway, no, Fenris Wolf was always just a cool, like, representation of bad shit about to go down is the simplest way I could possibly put it.
And trying to keep it locked away, trying to keep it under wraps. Don't look at it. Don't acknowledge it. Everything's fine. And
right.
And then it is just let loose upon the world. And
if you're familiar with the concept of the Midgard serpent, like how ill-defined that always kind of was, this is kind of the same thing. It's just if either of those two like creatures pop up in a Thor story, bad shit is happening. Is really what you're supposed to get out of it. Is the best way I could put it.
Well, what's next on our Marvel agenda, Mr. Capel?
Okay, shall we move on? We had confirmation that a little bit of news coming out of Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is, I believe, going to premiere in 2018, following. It's not the first film of 2018, which will be. I guess I should have done this in some sort of order, but I didn't.
It'll be right after Infinity War. It'll be the first MCU film after the first part of Infinity War.
Right. So that should be an interesting experience, maybe a bit of a palate cleanser. Confirmed that Michelle Pfeiffer has been cast as Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp. So this is someone who was kind of referenced in Ant-Man, but conspicuous by her absence. Now she's going to be showing up. Don't know if it will be in flashback form or if she's going to be there in the present day alongside Michael Douglas, which made me wonder, have Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas ever started anything together?
I'm not sure about that.
No.
The implication I got from the first film was that she was lost in the microverse, so it could be possible that at one point in the film, maybe there's a mission to try and find her and bring her back, so you could bring her back into the present day. I don't know though. Like that's a tough.
I'm really happy about that. I know Nick in particular. I know that you're pretty excited about this casting, correct?
Yes, I am very excited about the cast. The casting is the best way to put it.
Yes.
It's a fine choice. It blows my mind that they didn't do one of those like 90s erotic sex thrillers or something, you know, like it just
you hear that,
seems
Nick?
like the two of them.
Let's not, you know, rule it out just yet. Maybe Ant-Man and the Wasp will wind up being a 90s style erotic thriller. I'm all
she
for
did
it.
do the film Lady Hawk with noted sex symbol Matthew Broderick.
Noted sex symbol, huh?
And noted action star based on his turn in 1998's Godzilla.
Godzilla, that's right.
Good Lord. Also starring Doug Savant from Melrose Place.
Doug Savant? Really?
Yeah, he was in Godzilla.
Who did he play?
He was like a cop or a National Guard.
Yeah. Good Lord. He was on top of the world at the time.
Yeah, he left the show right after that. Boy, was that maybe not the best choice.
Big mistake.
Well, hey, Tim, what did you think about the other bit of casting for Ant-Man and the Wasp, that being Lawrence Fishburne being cast as Bill Foster?
Yeah, I mean, pretty good addition to that group of characters. I mean, it just seems like there was definitely a need to build up that supporting cast, I think.
Agreed. Agreed.
You know, you had the kind of comedic sidekick character in the first one, but I don't know. Let's let's try to do something a little bit more recognizable from the comics, but also entertaining in its own right. So
to preview the next installment of Greg and Nick Argue About Movies, more Michelle Pfeiffer and Lawrence Fishburne, less Michael Pena and Dude from The Dark Knight, please.
Dude from the Dark Knight.
I'm pretty down with that.
The Russian guy who was Paul Rudd's other sidekick that wasn't Michael Pena.
Oh yeah, that guy, the train tracks
David
guy.
Dastmalchian.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, no, I could give or take him, but I loved Michael Pena in the first Ant-Man. That's a movie that gets better to me with every watch, unlike some others, Dark World, for instance. But yeah, no, I'm excited about this. I think it's going to be cool. The cast is looking cool. I've been trying to Google whether Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas have ever done a film together, and quite frankly, the internet is not cooperating with my request.
Now that is some fantasy.
If you go to 6degreesofveljohnson.com, you should be able to type their names in and have it pop up.
Turns out both were on Family Matters.
Oh.
Incredible. I'm excited about this bit of casting. I'm a huge fan of the first Ant-Man movie, and I think there's no reason this one can't be better and take a step up, as many of the Marvel, or as several of the Marvel sequels have, and particularly the Captain America sequel. So,
and that's kind of my expectation. You know, I liked the first movie. I obviously didn't like it as much as you did, Greg, but I am expecting a big step up here, considering the expanded role for Evangeline Lilly, Michelle Pfeiffer's addition, you know, Lawrence Fishburne, Michael Douglas being back, and hopefully an improved villain. Because that's one thing, you know, I've kind of noticed is here in Phase 3, it seems like Marvel has kind of stepped its villain game up finally after all these years. It seems like we're on a run of pretty good ones. Caecilius from Doctor Strange notwithstanding.
Yeah, he wasn't the best, but
no, I mean Zemo.
Yeah.
Ego and Michael Keaton's Adrian Toomes. So we're on a pretty decent little mini run of MCU villainy after all those years of mediocrity.
I agree. Tim, I'll pose the question to you. I posed it to Nick last week. Who is your favorite non-Yellow Jacket Ant-Man villain? And why is it Tom Zink?
You know, I love the way he's a nice-looking young man, okay? No, there's a bit, I'm not going to get into a whole thing, but, like, the Ant-Man Tales to Astonish series, which was kind of the form of his solo book back in the 60s, had a litany of just Z-grade villains. I mean, just any given issue, you'd have somebody who never appeared again and was the most rubbish supervillain of all time, with like really low stakes schemes and not even real powers, but just like things you or I could probably design at home to use in villainous escapades. So I mean, I'm just getting overwhelmed thinking about this parade of morts, basically.
Oh,
my
man.
Goodness.
You know, honestly, that might be the way to go with an Ant-Man villain. Just present a villain that is intentionally lame. Like, just... There's just a hapless, lame villain.
Would MODOK not be a perfect, like, goofy Ant-Man villain for this?
I'm thinking sub-MODOK villains. So, MODOK would actually be like a properly goofy character, and one that's certainly more recognizable than his solo rogues gallery, such as there is. But yeah, I think that'd be really cool actually to see MODOK in a movie.
They could get somebody that can out hapless Paul Rudd. In other words, which is very very difficult to do.
Hapless Paul Rudd.
But yeah, so Ant-Man and the Wasp looking good so far. What's next on the anything left on the MCU agenda?
Well, you know, we were talking 90s erotic thrillers, and I don't think this will be an erotic thriller, but speaking of the 90s, we've learned that Captain Marvel will be set in the 1990s. Going to be a period piece. So this, given the timing, sounds like it might be the superhero period piece that's going to be evidently competing with Fox's X-Men Dark Phoenix, also set in the 90s.
Yeah, and movies after our own hearts, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty fucking pumped for this after all this news that they dropped about this, Tim. You know, I don't know that much about Carol Danvers or Captain Marvel in the comics, so I was kind of going into this one in the same vein that I was Guardians of the Galaxy, where I had mostly a blank slate of knowledge to work from. But this whole pitch with a 90s set movie, the Skrulls being involved, a two-eyed Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. I mean, all of this sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we haven't gotten a lot of details beyond there's going to be Skrulls. There's going to be Sam Jackson, again, without the eye patch, like you said. I think this does a nice bit of world building in this Marvel cinematic universe that we're coming to know more about. So now we're going to have the introduction of a new alien race, and you sort of wonder what exactly is going to be the conflict here if it's set in the 90s. I mean, it seems like if...
I could have swore that Feige directly mentioned Kree Skrull War in an interview.
He sure did. So it's sort of like this probably isn't going to be an Earth-based conflict because you figure that would change the game considerably. I mean,
entirely cosmic, I would imagine.
I don't think you get to 2008's Iron Man and people aren't talking about, hey, remember that big intergalactic invasion 20 years ago?
You listen here, Stark. This is craziness. You hear me? A guy in a metal suit flying around. We haven't seen anything this crazy since the aliens invaded.
Right. In 1998. I mean, so, yeah, I mean, I feel like they might be building up to something like a secret invasion or a secret wars. Yeah. They want to use those names just for branding purposes.
Now, the question that I had coming out of all this news is how could this be the official, breakup, so to speak, of the MCU and Marvel TV relationship with ABC? Because, I mean, it's felt like it's drifted apart over the years anyway. But, I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., although I haven't watched it in the last season and a half, built an entire season about the Kree being a thing. So, I guess they could still tie it in, but I wonder if this is where the MCU says, you know what, we're going to do our own thing with the Kree, and if you guys want to retcon your show, you can. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, my thinking on that is, and kind of has always been, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show, takes place within the Marvel Cinematic Universe of the movies, but the movies do not take place in the world of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
It really works better if you think of it that way. Yeah, that's a good point.
It just... the movies don't acknowledge the show does acknowledge the movies, and that's just sort of the world we live in. The Netflix series, they're kind of they sort of inhabit a middle ground, it seems like, where I mean, nothing from the films has contradicted what we've seen in any of those shows, but I mean, they're dealing with rather different subject matter, so there's not been a lot of overlap. But I don't know, I haven't been watching S.H.I.E.L.D. either. It just, I couldn't get past that, really the middle part of that first season. It just, well, it couldn't keep me.
I'm like Nick in that I have read zero Carol Danvers comics in my life. It's just a very big blind spot for me. Does she have any of her own iconic villains, or is this a good step to kind of establish the Skrulls as being a Captain Marvel antagonist, so to speak?
Yeah, her history is more with the Kree. In fact, that's kind of where she got her powers.
Marvel and all that, right?
Right. Captain Marvel, the male Captain Marvel, she became Ms. Marvel in the 70s. Mystique from the X-Men actually made her first appearance in Miss Marvel comics.
And Rogue actually got the, if anybody grew up watching the animated series and reading those early 90s X-Men comics, Rogue got the powers that her invulnerability and super strength and all that from absorbing Captain, or Miss Marvel's abilities and putting her into a coma, correct?
That's right, yep. But she got better. She got new powers, and she is now, in the comics as well, known as Captain Marvel. So, Carol Danvers, great character. I've always been a big fan of whatever direction, whatever series she's appearing in. Glad to see her getting more of a spotlight. Mm-hmm. And I think as well, setting this in the 90s, that's a nice way to really cement her bona fides as like this career military woman and tenured superhero, perhaps. I mean, if she's been active for this amount of time, then, you know, she's no slouch. She's not a rookie new to this game, just getting her powers. You know, you have to go through the origin, and then it's like, oh, here she comes to save the day, except she's only been a superhero for 5 minutes. You know, that's getting kind of tired, right? So let's give her her own movies, set it apart from everything else, and if she's brought back around and gets into the mix and in the Avengers films with the ensemble, she can really hold her own, I think.
Especially since I think Feige said in an interview at Comic-Con that quote, she is going to be the most powerful hero they've put on screen to this point. Mm-hmm. So that's certainly an interesting implication if that winds up being true. More powerful than Thor or the Hulk?
Right. Wow.
Well, to me, it's another part of the very wise strategy that Marvel has adopted of building your own replacements for the Avengers. For whenever Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Hemsworth and all the rest of them decide to go away, which from all indications is in the imminent future, you're going to have a new generation of Avengers with Spider-Man, with Black Panther, with Captain Marvel to come in and fill that role and be the new wave that can carry this franchise theoretically going forward into the future. So I think I agree with you, Tim. I think it's a great move. You can bring Carol back, and she automatically becomes kind of the tenured veteran of this next group of Avengers if that's the direction they go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So good stuff coming out of that. Last on my list, unless you guys have anything else on Captain Marvel,
I think we're
was Black Panther. So we haven't seen anything of the footage that was shown, again, at Hall H, but from what I gather, it was a real crowd pleaser. Got a standing ovation. They showed the trailer that has been publicly released and a scene from the film itself, which, without getting spoilery or going into a description, sounds like a rather James Bond-esque action scene with a standout, I guess, sequence of Denai Guerrera's Okoye whipping some ass, which we are no stranger to, of course, seeing her as Michonne on The Walking Dead, but as a member of the Dora Milaje, the all-female bodyguard group that Black Panther has surrounded himself with, will bring a different flavor, no doubt, to this film and to the action. So, I mean, they've got an enormous and excellent cast assembled. Again, we don't have a whole lot to go on at this point, but I mean, I'm pretty confident this film is going to deliver because it can't afford not to. You know, it's kind of too important to fail. I feel like
right. Agreed.
With as much attention and focus as it's gotten, so I don't see this being a flop. I don't see this being a popcorn fart, as one Tony Schiavone.
Having only seen the trailer and, you know, read a little bit about what they showed at Comic-Con, I don't think this is going to be a flop. I have been wowed by everything I've seen thus far, and I think this is going to be just as important a film and just as successful a film as Wonder Woman was for DC earlier this year. I think it's going to be a massive success that really highlights these audiences that have not yet been served by superhero culture to this point.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you guys are saying about how important it is. They've got the important factor is they've got the right talent in place. They've got the right director. They've got the right writer. They've got the right cast. This should, you know, if everything works out, and I think if the studio stays relatively out of the way, there's no reason this shouldn't be incredible. So I've got an idea for a quick lightning round here, guys, before we wrap up. other than Infinity War, which also got some screenings out there, but for which I am waiting to see the trailer when they formally release it. Other than Infinity War, because I'm assuming that will be our top, what is your most anticipated Marvel movie of the next year or two? Nick, I'll start with you. Okay,
so but if you count 2 years, that includes the Infinity War follow-up.
Well, you know what I mean. No Avengers, for God's sake, Nick.
I'm just trying to clarify the rules, quite
frankly, if you don't have rules in place, how you know what rules to break? How are you supposed to get any heat?
In any event, Marvel movie of the next 2 years. Black Panther.
All right, Tim?
I'm kind of thinking the same. I feel like I've got to go Black Panther. It just looks so different and so interesting to me, and that's it's a mythology that I'm not quite as familiar with, but I'm trying to educate myself as I go, and as I learn more, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to see that in the movie. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I have to make it a hat trick. I'm like you, Tim. I'm not well versed in Black Panther's mythology, because it feels like when I was a kid, he wasn't a big deal in the comics, as he would become later on under Christopher Priest and others as well.
Right.
And so I'm going to enjoy being taken on a ride by the movie, and that's my pick as well. Nick, I understand there's one more item that we might try to squeeze in as a lightning round item as well. What was that?
Oh, yeah, just real quick. One of the more bizarre stories to come out of San Diego Comic-Con, in my opinion, and not that this is directly related to Marvel Studios, but it is indeed a Marvel property, was the report that Noah Hawley, I believe. It was the Legion guy. Is that not Noah Hawley? Yes? You guys who watch Legion?
Yes.
Yeah,
he also does Fargo.
Yeah, showrunner Noah Hawley is developing for Fox a Doctor Doom standalone movie. So I just kind of wanted to get real quick thoughts from everybody. I will say it's an exceptionally odd story, I think, considering Fox has yet to get anything about the Fantastic Four right to this point. So I don't really know what to make of it.
Based on... I'm torn because, on the one hand, he has given me no reason not to have faith in him, given how great Legion, or how... I don't want to say even great, how interesting Legion has been. However, on the other hand, I don't give shit one about the Fantastic Four or Doctor Doom, so I have to excuse myself from the question, I suppose. Tim?
I mean, what are they doing? Are they setting up Doctor Doom as an X-Men villain? I can't imagine they're trying to do something else with the Fantastic Four as a property again. It just... Guys, give it a rest.
Give it back.
Give it back.
Just give it back.
Not that great things can't come out of the Fantastic Four and that cast of characters, but time and again, boy, Fox has demonstrated they really don't have this one. So while he is a great character, one of the all-time great villains, in fact, I don't know. There's just not a lot of there right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I didn't want to sully the name of Doctor Doom. He's a great character. It's just Fantastic Four is such a non-entity in my comic book mind that it's hard for me to get too excited about any of these projects. But I guess crazier things have happened than a Doctor Doom movie being successful, so maybe it will work. But time will tell. Well, with that being said, we're going to wrap up our first segment here and take our first commercial break. And I want to thank Tim for taking time out of his day to chat with us about Marvel. Tim, how can people find you on social media, and do you have anything you'd like to plug?
Well, I want to thank you guys for having me in the L-shaped studio. People don't realize how spacious the L-shaped studio really is. I mean, you've got a full Punjabi prison in here. I mean,
imagine. Do you have any idea how hard it was to set up, Tim? I mean, it was.
I was just thinking that. I mean, my goodness. In any case, folks can find me on Twitter at Psyche68, that's CYKE 68 on Twitter. You can find me in the Place to Be Nation comics Facebook group as well, Place to Be Nation Comics Weekly Chats. You can find me at placetobenation.com in the daily threads, commenting as Psych68. If you have not joined and checked out those daily threads, please do. We now have a comment section, so you may not know who all the commenters are necessarily, but that is who I am. Anyway, come join us. Check it out. Always a good time.
Definitely. Yeah, that's good stuff, Tim. The new comment section, which I urge all of you listening to go and let us know what you think of this show. And you can let us know that also on Twitter, through email. And again, Tim, thanks for joining us. And we're going to take a break right now. When we come back on the other side, we're going to be chatting with Russell Sellers about some of the big comic book news to come out from both DC and Marvel, as well as perhaps some indies. We'll see when we get back from the break.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which, of course, includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And joining us at this time is our longtime friend, longtime guest of the show, friend of the show, buddy of the show, the host, co-host of Sellers Points, right here on Place to Be Nation Pop, and an all-around good guy, Russell Sellers. How are you, sir?
Doing good, Greg. Doing good. Always happy to come back to HTF and to talk some comics.
That's right, and that's what we are here to do, ladies and gentlemen, because where the bread is buttered for us is on the printed page of the comic book. That's what the show is all about. That's what Place to Be Nation Pop was built on, the foundation that lifts up our entire structure here at Place to Be Nation Pop, the world of comic books. And without any further ado, we had a lot of news and notes from the weekend at SDCC. Russell, what would you like to talk about first from the world of comics?
Man, it was a big weekend for comic book media, and of course the main medium that we love most had some big announcements. And the first one that grabbed my attention, of course, that grabbed a lot of people's attention, was the details about Doomsday Clock, the next big DC Comics event after Metal that's going to be written by Jeff Johns and drawn by the legendary Gary Frank. That one is going to be a 12-issue miniseries. It's going to be coming out monthly. It's going to have no tie, according to Jeff Johns, no tie-in issues whatsoever, because it takes place a year in the future to where all the other DC books are at when Doomsday Clock begins. And it's a pretty huge story, because this is going to be that big conflict that we've been teased with since Rebirth started, and that's the confrontation between Superman and Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, this is pretty much the big one for me. This is the big event that I'm really looking forward to. Everything that we hear about it is very intriguing. I love the fact that there's no crossover, or no tie-ins rather. I'm in love with that concept. I think doing the flash forward is a brilliant idea that hasn't been tried to this degree for quite some time. Reminiscent somewhat of 1 year later that came after 52 across the entire line, but in this case, it's one book that is jumping a year ahead, and all the other books are going to be catching up to it over the next year, which is really going to make for an interesting dynamic. Nick, what are your thoughts on this? All the stuff that we found out thus far about Doomsday Clock.
Man, it all sounds great. I mean, no doubt about that. I mean, we all kind of knew that it was going to feature some sort of involvement between Dr. Manhattan and Superman, but we also got the confirmation of characters like Ozymandias and Lex Luthor having a little bit of a showdown in the story as well, which all sounds awesome. I love the artwork we've seen thus far. The only aspect of it that concerns me even the slightest bit, and it's not really a concern about anything having to do with the story, but more about concerns about what it's going to mean for each of our respective wallets. The fact that this is going to be going on for an entire 12 issues, which means it's going to be going on for the bulk of the story concurrently with the conclusion of Zack Snyder's Metal. So lots of money being dropped on DC event books over the next several months for the three of us in all likelihood.
Absolutely. And it's also going to be taking place at the same time as Scott Snyder's Metal. So that's going to be good, too.
Scott Snyder, Zack Snyder, who gives a shit?
There are so many Snyders out there. It's tough to keep it all straight. But yeah, I agree with that. The whole thing running like right around the same time that Metal is running, which Metal isn't as long as Doomsday Clock, so it should be wrapping up decently well before Doomsday Clock is really hitting its stride. I think because Jeff Johns is another one of those guys who plays that long game pretty well. So I'm reasonably sure that with 12 issues to play with, he's going to spread this story out.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the publishing schedule might be because DC has been so committed to the bi-monthly shipping schedules. I didn't know if they might try that or something. I know that I have seen that Metal is confirmed to stretch at least into January and February of next year. So
yeah.
Right.
A lot of big stuff going on with that. So we know there's going to be at least a three months or so of crossover between the two.
And I think, like Greg was saying, the benefit of doing Doomsday Clock is that it jumps ahead that year. So everything that's happening right now, or everything that's happening in DC Comics when Doomsday Clock #1 comes out is technically a year in the past. So that's another kind of benefit of Doomsday Clock for new readers, people who haven't necessarily been reading everything in DC. We're all going to be on kind of even footing there because it's all jumping a year ahead in the future. So we don't know what all has happened up to then. Only Jeff Johns does. And this also kind of speaks to the idea that Johns has truly been the architect of DC Comics going forward, because as this will have to dictate, everything that happens in DC Comics is going to have to follow that Doomsday Clock roadmap. You're going to have to get there without, rocking the boat too much. I'm sure there will be creative freedom still, just so long as you don't contradict what Johns is doing in that book. But certain titles, I'm sure, will have to really work hard to make sure they play ball with that continuity.
Right, like if you know that a character is going to be featured in Doomsday Clock, you can't kill that character off, for instance, or something along those lines. But I think ideally, from a financial standpoint, you would hope that you wouldn't have another event going on concurrently at the beginning, because it's going to divide the audience's money and time and all that stuff. But I can tell you from my perspective, I'm not planning on picking up Metal concurrently. I'm probably going to trade weight it. And so for me, it's not going to be that big of a challenge, because I'm certainly not going to get all the tie-ins and crossovers and everything. So for me, it's pretty much I'm waiting on but waiting on Doomsday Clock, and that'll be my first real event book in quite a while that I've picked up. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be cool, and I'm excited to see where everything goes. And I'm glad that it's not going to overly disrupt all of the other titles that I'm currently reading, because as you guys know, pretty much all of the other DC books are in the middle of telling, or most of them anyway, are in the middle of telling longer form stories right now, whether it be Aquaman, Green Arrow, Wonder Woman, Superman, etc., Batman, of course. So I'm glad that those titles are not going to be too disrupted by what we're seeing in the event books.
Sure, and I think that's all going to work out pretty well. But like you guys suggested, if you see a character show up in Doomsday Clock, it kind of lets you know that there's no real mortal danger for that character in their own book. And that's fine, because honestly, and I've said this on Seller's Points, I'll say it again, both DC and Marvel need to put the death crutch back in the box for a little while. And
agreed.
Let's give it a rest. If you're going to kill off a villain, fair enough, but let the heroes survive for a little while. I think we need to see them just being really good at what they do, and stop using that as a a cheap pop to sell your book.
Of course, and it's like anything. When you over rely or overuse any kind of technique or any kind of story that you want to tell, when you overutilize it, it loses its value over time. And I think what we've seen is I can't remember the last time, honestly, a superhero comic death affected me in any real or emotional way. They just, because my reaction is always, well, he'll be back in a couple months. So, you know, it's something I would like to see regain value.
Yeah, somebody needs to put a little chalk in the revolving door that is death. So let's. But with that said, let's move on.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of other stories that came out of Comic-Con, and I want to give Marvel a little shout here because they have announced their new Captain America creative team, and it immediately went on my pull list because of it. Because Mark Waid and Chris Samney are taking over Captain America at issue 695 because they are bringing back Captain America's original numbering as they have calculated it up. Don't ask me to explain the convoluted way that they got there because I'm not going to understand it. I'm just going to say that Wade and Samney, the team that made me love Daredevil again, the team that did some really great things on Black Widow as well, they're taking over this book. This has got to be, you know, classic Cap. This is what I've been waiting for. I've only pulled a few issues of Captain America here and there. I've never been like a dedicated subscriber, but this is probably going to do it for me.
Yeah, this was a really exciting announcement because I think the one thing that you could argue that Marvel has not capitalized on as much as they could have, arguably, is the popularity of the movie versions of these characters that we're seeing in the comics. And
with the exception of Iron Man, maybe.
Right, and Iron Man is almost the exception that proves the rule because Iron Man's entire characterization has changed as a result of the movie, which is good. You know, it's been a good thing.
Yes.
But I think in case of Cap, if somebody goes out and sees, say, Civil War and loves it, and they go and they pick up a comic, are they going to recognize what they're seeing from this version of Cap that they're reading? Not that I'm saying the story's bad, because it may be great. I know Nick's a fan of the story that's currently going on and everything, but it's just I think that this is going to be a chance to present a more classical interpretation of Cap, maybe one that you could more easily see Chris Evans in the role of, and Wade just has a handle on these classic style superheroes that few other writers have, and Chris Samney's art should be an easy fit for this. If anybody's familiar with his Daredevil work, he has this kind of smooth, almost animated style, I would say, almost like something you could see fitting in with an animated series. And I think his work on Cap should be pretty stellar. And I know, Nick, you're excited about this for another reason.
Yeah, because with the announcement of Mark Waid taking on another ongoing title, I think it would lend some credence to the idea that's out there that perhaps his time as lead writer on Avengers is coming to a close, and the rumor that's been out there for a little while is that Jason Aaron and Asad Ribic may or may not be taking over that title.
Is it for you to say?
It's not for me to say at this juncture. Wouldn't be prudent.
There is another thing that could bring that up, but that'll be our next topic. But I want to say that Wade's pitch for Captain America definitely has me intrigued because he describes Steve as being that guy who's been kind of the couch surfer of the Marvel Universe, never really having a place of his own other than like Avengers Mansion. So this is going to involve kind of a road trip for the character, and it's him getting back in touch with Captain America, learning how people perceive him in light of Secret Empire. So it's not just like erasing Secret Empire from people's minds and like kind of starting over. It's like this is Captain America learning how to be that hero of the people again. And I dig that. And on top of that, the artwork is going to be kick-ass. So
yeah,
this is something to get.
That's a pitch that's been done with Superman a couple times in the past, and it's one that I think works, especially if you view, as I do, Captain America as analogous to Superman from DC. moral arbiter of sorts, and when they lose that moral high ground, how do they get in touch with that again? How do they rebuild themselves? How do they get back in touch with the people that they have fought for their whole lives? And so I think this is a really good approach to take with Cap, a really good way of dealing, and I think that's the biggest thing that people like us like to see out of our big comic book stories. When you do a bold story like what they just did with Cap, the big thing is there have to be repercussions. There have to be ramifications. And I always enjoy seeing what the ramifications are to these big events, often more than I enjoy the big events themselves.
I agree with that. And Wade is really good about, showing the consequences of things that have happened. And, not unlike Jeff Johns, he's good at showing or good at taking the continuity and taking the things that have come before and putting a new spin on them, putting them in a different light so that you can kind of get a different feel for how things went. And I think it's kind of a perspective thing. And that's where I see him kind of going with his Captain America run. And it'll make Tim Capel very happy because, as Tim has mentioned before, Mark Waid had a run on Captain America back in the 90s that never got to finish. And
that's true.
This is a chance to kind of pick that back up and maybe not pick up necessarily the story threads, but at least give us a firm and full, complete look at what his ideas for Captain America could have been. So all these years later, we're finally getting that Captain America from Mark Waid that we've always wanted. So, but to speak to the thing that Nick is excited about, there's another thing that lends a little credence to the idea that Jason Aaron and Asad Ribic may be heading to Avengers, and that's that Jason Aaron has left Marvel's Star Wars title, and that Kieran Gillen has taken over as the lead writer, along with his Darth Vader cohort, whose name escapes me, Salvador Larroca.
Yep.
Larroca.
Yes, which is pretty exciting development in itself, because I've been reading both Star Wars and Darth Vader through the Marvel Unlimited app, and both titles are extremely good, but I have to give it to Kieran Gillen as the guy with the better book. And I'm pretty excited to see what he does with Star Wars. But on the larger subject, this does feed into the idea that Jason Aaron may be headed over to Avengers, and if so, and especially if it's with Asad Ribic, that's instant pull list for me. I'm going to wind up buying more Marvel due to Legacy if this indeed does turn out to be true. Of course, in the immediacy of Legacy, you're not going to see that because it seems that Mark Waid is still continuing on Avengers, at least in the interim. But
yeah, they have an Avengers versus Champions storyline planned, but a crossover between the two titles, and I think Mark Waid is going to write that storyline, and they have not solicited out past that as of yet. So that would seem to be a natural jumping off point, but it could obviously be delayed further if indeed he is leaving the book at all.
Yep, and I would think that he would need to make some room on his plate. Taking on another ongoing, especially with a character like Captain America, he needs to make a little room there, and he's been on Avengers for a good minute, so it makes sense for him to put that one away.
Plus, you would have to think with the Marvel Legacy one-shot that's coming to kick all this initiative off, Jason Aaron's writing that, Asad Ribic is drawing it. You have to imagine they're gonna sow some seeds that they are going to want to be the ones to follow up on.
Oh, absolutely. That is the only thing that makes sense.
In my fantasy world, what if Jason Aaron and Asad Ribic went to DC and did Justice League?
Well, that would be awesome, but
right.
I also want a toilet made out of solid gold, but it's just not in the cards.
Just not in the cards now, is it, baby?
It's not, but that sort of thing would be my bag.
Nick, I am curious as to your thoughts on Aaron leaving Star Wars. I know you read all the Star Wars books and are a big Star Warsian. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, obviously I'm a little bummed because I have very much enjoyed his run to this point. It's been a very long run, longer than a lot of creative runs, at Marvel tend to be these days. So I have enjoyed everything he's done pretty much to this point. But I will agree with Russell that from a Star Wars perspective, it's kind of a perfect scenario. If Jason Aaron's going to leave, there is nobody on their roster right now that has shown a better ability to write the Star Wars universe than Kieran Gillen. I mean, between his work on Darth Vader and his work now on Dr. Aphra, he shows a handle on what Marvel is seeking to do with this Star Wars line of comics. So that's great news. And Salvador LaRocca coming back on art, massive step up from his current collaborator on Dr. Aphra, who I forget the first name of, but I know that the last name is Kamen Kohli. So ultimately, I would say it's a net neutral for the Star Wars comics as far as I'm concerned. Hate to see Aaron leave, but love to see Gillen taking over. And then, of course, but the fact that Aaron has a free spot on this plate now just lends more credence to the possibility that maybe that Avengers thing is going to happen. So, fingers crossed for that to come to fruition.
Absolutely. And another thing that should be mentioned about the Star Wars title, for fans of The Force Awakens, they should definitely be interested in this, that the first place that Gillen is going to take the book when he takes over in October with issue 37 is to the post-apocalyptic hell that remains of Jeddah.
You mean of fans of Rogue One?
Rogue One, yes, sorry. Not Force Awakens.
No, you're good.
So if you are a fan of Rogue One, not Force Awakens, this book is going to explore some places that were shown in that film,
right?
To better incorporate it in the larger Star Wars narrative.
And speaking of Rogue One, I haven't been reading. They've been doing an ongoing adaptation of the film in comic form. I haven't read any of it. I'm going to check it out in trade though, because I have heard that they actually took some scenes from the original script that wound up being cut from the film, and those scenes are actually in the comic. So I'm very much interested in checking that out at some point whenever it's collected in trade form.
Yes, once that starts hitting Marvel Unlimited, it's going to be going into my my
that's
queue.
a good point. Marvel Unlimited, I always forget.
Which you can download right now on your mobile device or on your computer and take advantage of. It's a great service.
Absolutely.
Webby award-winning Marvel Unlimited.
And to move back over. Well, before I get to DC, there is one little thing that got thrown out there during Comic-Con that probably should be cleared up, is that a couple of sites ran with this idea that Robert Kirkman was about to bring Walking Dead to an end, and that turned out to not be true. He just said that he has an idea for it. I mean, it fooled a lot of people. It fooled me too.
Which is something he said in the past. Like, that was why I saw that headline come across, and my first thought was, I guess he's finally, put a timetable on it. And then when I read the stories that were reporting it, I was like, it's nothing he hasn't said before. Why is this all of a sudden making the rounds? That was an odd bit of clickbait frenzy out of Comic-Con, I thought.
It really was. It was more examples of mountains being made of molehills, and that was run with by major sites like Nerdist and IGN and others.
So. Yeah, that was the part that was weird, is that the Nerdist, which is typically a pretty reliable site, ran with it to such a degree. It almost makes me wonder if they just weren't aware that he had said that, pretty much the exact same thing in the past.
Possibly, or maybe they just saw a headline and grabbed the quote real quick and said, we got to get this out there and get some clicks. And it worked. You look a little foolish, but it worked. And
I can just say I got my hopes up because
it is time. I agree with that.
It's the big thing is I am of the belief that when you start a story of any kind, you should at least have an ending point in mind, and because I think it removes some of the dramatic weight, especially when you're dealing with a standalone property like The Walking Dead, if you have no concern about the main character and you have no concern about basically, and also if you're spinning your wheels a lot, which is a concern based on not last season of the TV show, but prior seasons, and based on a lot of the comics that I've read, where they get into a holding pattern at times of just waiting until the next big, shocking thing happens. So,
yeah, that's definitely a problem in the amount of Walking Dead that I've read. There would be whole trade volumes of just nothing happening. And, I mean, when something does happen, it's big and it's exciting, but you start to see that those moments become few and far between, and whenever a book becomes like that, I kind of lose patience with it. But, nevertheless, we move on.
I do kind of love the idea, though, of by the time The Walking Dead finally ends, Rick will have no body parts left. He'll just be a stub.
We need to talk about your penis, Rick.
I lost it back in the last war.
Whoa. Oh,
it's
God,
my thing.
Oh, God. But anyway, there is, like I said, we're headed back to DC for one last bit of really big and very exciting news, I think, for all three of us, is that Jeff Lemire's Marvel exclusive contract expired. He did not re-up, and he immediately comes back to DC Comics and is announced to be the writer of Hawkman Found, which is a big metal DC or Dark Knight's metal tie-in that's going to run alongside Batman Lost, which is being written by, I believe, by Scott Snyder. And on top of that, he's also going to be doing a new ongoing inside DC's Dark Matter line called The Terrifics, which is going to feature Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, Phantom Girl, and Plastic Man.
Woohoo!
So this is a pretty big announcement, but on top of that, they also announced that Ivan Rice will be drawing the first story arc, and that after that, Doc Shaner tags in to do the next story arc. If this is not a shot across the bow at Marvel, I don't know what is. This is Fantastic Four, just in a different name using DC characters.
Yeah, it definitely came off that way to me. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, it definitely felt like a shot for sure, but one that makes a lot of sense given the lack of stature the Fantastic Four have enjoyed over at Marvel in recent years. Although I wonder if it might be a little mistimed, because I would be pretty surprised myself if some sort of Fantastic Four tease is not brought up in that Legacy one shot coming in October.
I wouldn't doubt that. I would be very surprised if Marvel hasn't just been playing it very close to the vest, right, and they're going to wind up announcing a new Fantastic Four ongoing. And if so, that's cool. The question is, who's going to do the concept better? Mm-hmm. And
my only concern with this title really is that Lemire has kind of struggled writing team books. It's been the one blemish on his resume that he's kind of had to this point. He kind of...
Yes.
I wound up not really being a big fan of Justice League United. I believe that's what it was called, right? Justice League
United. Yep, that's right.
I will give him credit on one team book that he did that was very good. Whenever he did a run on Justice League Dark, that was a really good run. Okay. It turned that book around because it was floundering in the early days of the New 52. But he comes on with Mikhail Janin, and they turned that book into something much better. Right. But I think the key to his success here may be to, if he's going to write a team book, make sure it's not one with a large number of people on the team.
Right, and keep it focused.
Yeah, if it's focused just on these four, like these are your four, these are the personalities you work with, he could essentially treat it like a solo book. Like he could put Plastic Man out front if he wanted to, and just write everybody else as kind of support characters.
Right. I think one of the issues that he ran into with Justice League United and some of his X-Men work and some of his other Marvel stuff was, team-wise, is sometimes when you've got a team with, I think Justice League United at one point had like 7 or 8 members, and, he would find himself unable to keep everyone interesting, but having to try to fit them all into the scenes and stuff like that. And so everybody kind of had a similar voice, and it was hard to separate them out. But maybe by keeping it to 4 main characters, like you said, he can cycle out the focus between the 4, and it won't be as big a deal to keep the others involved. And also, Nick, I mentioned this when I was recording Sellers Points Quarterly with Russell the other night, which will be out soon here on PlayStation Pop. But you'll appreciate my issue on Friday. I went the whole day, and I was referring to this book when I would speak to people as the Fantastics.
Yes. Now, I have heard tell that Daniel Dryberg and Rorschach once went 2-on-2 with the Fantastics for the U.S. heavyweight tag titles at the Greensboro Coliseum, but that's just a rumor.
Yeah, I heard that somewhere too. I haven't seen the match to confirm it, and I do understand it may have even gone to a time limit draw. So we'll see about that. But no, I'm really excited about this. I think Plastic Man is a character that, gosh, and Russell, you might be able to help me out here, but I don't remember the last time he was featured prominently in a DC book. It has to have been over 10 years.
At least. As far as his involvement, like in the New 52, it was minimal at best. I think he was mostly a background character. And could have easily been confused for the Elongated Man a couple of times.
And probably was by the artist.
Yes, and I think that's a fair assumption. But we've been teased with Plastic Man in the 2 one-shots, or at least in I believe it was Dark Knight's The Forge, which was the first of the one-shots that are leading into Dark Knight's Metal. We see Plastic Man's egg that's been kept by Batman. So I feel like they're playing up the villain side of Plastic Man, or they're teasing that he's been a villain up to this point, and Batman is going to let him out because he's going to come in handy in this battle that's coming up in Dark Knight's Metal. He's going to give Plastic Man kind of a redemption arc.
Which was always one of the interesting things, because the last time that I remember Plastic Man being very prominent within DC was back in the early 2000s in the Joe Kelly era of the JLA, when Plastic Man was a member of the JLA, and they were doing a lot. He was very popular for whatever reason at that time, and they were doing a lot of comics like Batman and Plastic Man crossing over, and they really played up that Batman didn't fully trust Plastic Man because of his criminal past, and so and Plastic Man being just this zany, off the wall comedic character that deep down was still trying to redeem himself from the mistakes of his past. It's always an interesting angle, even amidst all the zany comedy that you get with any Plastic Man title.
And I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping that Jeff Lemire can really bring that to the title as well. Because it's going to need to have that comedy aspect of it. I mean, Plastic Man's a funny character, and he should always be allowed to be so. And he should totally be playing that funny, almost, I would say, give him a Deadpool-esque personality, even breaking the fourth wall every once in a while, and let Mr. Terrific play complete straight man to that. I would love that book, and I hope that's what we get. But if I can tickle Nick's fancy for a moment, there is another thing about Jeff Lemire's return that might make him really happy. It's being talked about now since Jeff Lemire is doing this Hawkman one-shot that he may also be doing a Hawkman ongoing that spins out of this. And we've talked about Lemire leaving Marvel and coming back over. Well, Andrea Sorrentino tends to follow Jeff Lemire where he goes. And Sorrentino has not been announced on any Marvel Legacy books, and he has not been announced on anything in DC yet. So what I'm proposing is that if that Hawkman deal does turn out to be true, I think it's a foregone conclusion that Andrea Sorrentino will be drawing it.
I hope you're right. I don't know that it's quite a foregone conclusion, but let's hope that is the case. If that happens, I've never read a Hawkman comic in my life, not even the Jeff Johns one, but I would certainly hop all over that.
Yeah, that would be instant pull list material for me as well. I mean, that's their Green Lantern or Green Arrow run together was legendary and one of my favorite pickups on my pull list of all time.
And you'll wind up loving their Old Man Logan once you finally get around to reading it as well, Greg. No doubt about that.
Yes.
Co-signed on that. Their Old Man Logan is tremendous stuff.
So if you put him on Old Man or Young Man or Middle-Aged Man Hawkman, then I'm down with that as well. I too have never read a Hawkman solo book, although I've always wanted to read the Jeff Johns run. But I would be all over this in a heartbeat, based on the creative team alone, if that were to be the case.
Yeah. So I am very much hoping that is the case. But we'll see as the months progress. They've got to get through Metal first, I think. And I feel like we'll be getting I feel like if it's a Hawkman solo title that's coming out, it won't be in the Dark Matter line, but it'll probably be an official Rebirth bannered book. But I feel like it may serve as the connective bridge between Metal, or the Dark Knights line, and the Rebirth line, even though they are in the same continuity to begin with. But speaking of DC, the only thing left that really struck me out of the comics announcements is not a good one. And it was that there was a surprise announcement from Frank Miller that he and John Romita Jr. are going to be doing Superman Year One. And they showed a first piece of art from that project, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It not hot.
Cut.
And all I can say for it is, if Conan O'Brien sees that picture, he's going to think that he's Superman, because the hair has certainly taken on a life of its own, and I feel like that's what John Romita Jr. really wanted to draw, and maybe that's the character that Frank Miller really wants to write. And it wouldn't surprise me if this comes out and it's, I don't know, a beauty-obsessed Superman or something like that. I mean, who knows what Frank Miller's take on this character is going to be. He said that he's had one for years, and that he wanted to show people that he doesn't actually hate Superman after, the way he wrote him in Dark Knight Returns. But honestly, I don't give enough of a shit about Frank Miller's take on Superman to care, and Frank Miller in his old age has only proven more and more senile, so I have absolutely no desire to see him try his hand at one of my favorite characters. I'd rather he just retired and be done with it.
Yeah, I have all the issues of Dark Knight 3. Have yet to read any of them, but I understand that he had something of a filter in the form of Brian Azzarello on that title, and I don't know that he is going to have that filter here. So, should be very unique seeing Frank Miller unchecked attempting to prove to people that he doesn't hate Superman. I am morbidly curious about what this project is going to turn out to be.
Well, the good news there, for those of us who really don't think or don't want this to happen, is that if he doesn't have Brian Azzarello there to not only be a filter, but to actually keep that book coming out, we won't have to worry about it, because it's only going to get like one issue, and then we'll wait 6 months to see if another one's going to happen, and it won't, and he'll just get bored and forget about it.
I thought this was described as a one shot already, like a 70-page.
Oh.
Kind of deal.
If it's that and it actually comes out, all the easier for me to ignore it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We were talking about the Conan O'Brien resemblance, and certainly every time Frank has drawn Superman, it feels like his hair has gotten progressively stranger. Like it's the front of it is growing, the swirl is growing, and everything else is staying about the same. And so another great comparison, Russell, maybe you'll appreciate this one. He's also beginning to resemble Egon from the Real Ghostbusters cartoon.
Yes, he is. That hair has definitely got some Egon hair going on. And now I want that crossover to happen. Can I get a Ghostbusters and Superman crossover? I'd read it.
I'm a little surprised it hasn't happened yet, actually. But
there's another Ghostbusters and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover coming, and I got to tell you, that first one wasn't too bad.
That's another natural one that would make my 7-year-old heart flutter if that had come out. When I was watching both those cartoons regularly, it would have literally caused my brain to explode, probably, which would have been a mess around the Phillips household, granted. But yes, I've never, and I've said this in my readings of Dark Knight Returns many times. I've never viewed that as a book in which he hates Superman. I think his take on Superman is unique, but I've always kind of liked the way that, for the most part, that he writes Superman in that, because in my own way I can rationalize and understand why he would act that way. Then I read Dark Knight Strikes Again, and there's no rationalizing that at all. Nope. So it's certainly and I haven't read Dark Knight 3 either, but good Lord, after Dark Knight Strikes Again, it sapped my will to continue, I think. But we'll see if it ever even comes out. I'm not convinced it will ever actually come out, because remember, what was it, about 15 years ago, he was working on a Batman versus terrorist story that never happened or got changed and turned into something else, and then it was All-Star Batman.
Wound up becoming Holy Terror, which is I've only read bits and pieces of, but good Lord, Greg, if you've never read any of it, it's worth a look.
And then there was All-Star Batman and Robin, which never got finished.
As I was referencing in my thoughts about this Superman Year One, if that were to be a miniseries or a series at all, we'd probably not have to worry about it ever actually concluding. It would just get about halfway in, and they'd be like, maybe not.
Which, to be fair, on All-Star Batman and Robin, it was like the perfect storm of never going to finish this by combining Frank Miller with Jim Lee.
That is a fair assessment of that.
It just frustrates me to look at All-Star Batman and Robin and see some really great work from Jim Lee.
Oh, it's amazing work from Jim Lee.
And then to read what is in the word bubbles around it.
It is that situation where it says the writing is so bad that even artwork of that caliber cannot elevate it into being a good book. I mean, you can just flip through it, look at the pictures, and try to write your own dialogue to it, and maybe it won't suck that bad. But no, it still kind of does, because there's what's happening on the page is not good.
Once you flip through it, you might want to look at the flowers. And,
yes.
Or just look at that splash page of Vicky Vale in lingerie from the first 4 pages.
Oh yeah.
JR?
Yeah. It's I don't know what else we can say about it at this point. It's going to be somewhat of a unique situation, quite frankly, when it all comes to pass. And I'm sure that if it comes out and it gets a lot of buzz one way or the other, we will be sure to do a long book hunt on it and let you know whether it's surprisingly great or hilariously bad, which is also an example. And I'm someone who is not a big John Romita Jr. fan in the first place, so it's especially a pairing that makes me or gives me pause, shall I say. So,
yeah. As a fan of John Romita Jr., I can admit whenever his art is not up to where it could be, and his Superman work was certainly that, and I don't have a lot of hope that this is going to be any different. And but I did love his Amazing Spider-Man run with J. Michael Straczynski back in the day. I think that was probably that's his absolute peak. That's John Romita Jr. at his absolute best. He was never better than that. Though credit where it's due, his All-Star Batman stuff he did with Scott Snyder, pretty good work, pretty good. But that Amazing Spider-Man run is really where it's at. That's him at his absolute creative peak.
And speaking of all this comics talk we've had, I just want to mention to everybody that we are about 1 year away from the next iteration of the buy-in. Let me see if I got this right. The Peter David Memorial Place to Be Nation Pop comic book. Fantasy
from the third biennial Place to Be Nation Pop Peter David Memorial Fantasy Comics Draft, presented by what may or may not be at the time 1 year from now a hypothetical DC Comics online unlimited subscription service.
Thank you. That's exactly right. And so let the anticipation begin, ladies and gentlemen. It's a biennial event. I mean, if that doesn't add import to it, I don't know what would or could, for that matter. So we're all of this could play in. Well, one of us maybe one of us wants to draft specifically the Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. version of Superman. It could happen. We'll see what.
Old Frank has not been drafted, I don't think, in any of our drafts at this point. So,
but he's made himself eligible again by proxy of DK3 and the announcement of this book.
He sure has, Stevie.
He sure has. So let's see let's let it play out and see where it goes. Now, Russell, I want to thank you for joining us tonight and taking time out of your day to talk some comics with us. Let the people know how they can find you on social media and promote whatever you would like to promote.
Well, you guys can find me on Twitter at Russell_Sellers. You can follow me there. Also follow my Place to Be Nation Pop cohort and co-host of Sellers Points, Kelly Poole. He's at HKP2814. We both love to tweet out our favorite thoughts on comics and comic book related media. We certainly have plenty of thoughts on that. You guys can catch, of course, Greg talked about it. The Sellers Points Quarterly is out now. So go get on that Peter Jackson approved epic, because you're going to need to block out time in your day. So if you got a long commute, or if you're like certain other Place to Be Nation Pop folks and you have 3 morning constitutionals, it might get you through it, or at least part of it might make it come out smoother. Who knows? It has been known to have a fiber effect. Now,
and I don't want to tell tales out of skew, but we even got a surprise. Well, I don't want to spoil it, but there are some surprises on that episode that proved to be somewhat unique in nature.
You have no idea. And, of course, you guys will also be able to catch a pod blast that I'm going to have coming up pretty soon, where I'm going to give me and Jennifer Smith are going to be giving our thoughts on the DC Extended Universe slate that was announced at Comic-Con, as well as that Justice League trailer and where things stand. So look out for all of that, and of course more episodes of Sellers Points. We're going to be talking some Spider-Man in August, and who knows what else we may get into, but we'll keep you appraised of that situation. But we're out twice a month, not quite as on the spot as these guys here over at HTF, but we try.
Well, the advantage of going twice a month is you don't have your blood pressure increased every week by technical difficulties that arise. So I would recommend that. So
just twice a month.
Just twice a month, exactly, instead of every week. So with that being said, we're going to take another commercial break here, ladies and gentlemen, and when we come back from the other side, we've got even more fun and discussions. This time, we are going to be joined by Jennifer Smith to talk a little bit about comic book television and what's coming up from the likes of the CW shows, from The Walking Dead, and from all of your favorite and perhaps least favorite comic book properties. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hell yes.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlayStation.com, and we offer those to you on 3 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the original Place to Be podcast, as well as Main Event, Lucha Afterground, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows, as well as the Our Vantage Point podcast and Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver quick-hit pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Psychology is Dead, Puro Potpourri, Stacy and Elliot's Bogus Journey, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Letters from Center Stage, Space City, and NWA Classics On Demand Adventure, Through the Years, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Kayfabe, and much more. And on our popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, PTBN Dadcast, Go Home in a Box, NBA Team, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversation, Geek and Sassy, and Imaginary Stories podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to all of our feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when shopping online, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, TheHistoryOfWrestling.com, and Scott Keats' Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
We're back from our first commercial break of the evening. Thanks once again to actually our second commercial break of the evening. Thanks to Tim and Russell
Tales out of school, sir,
joining us, and thanks to everybody for this completely in order recording sequence we're doing. And everything has just turned out swimmingly thus far. Nick, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. We have had zero technical difficulties whatsoever at this point.
None. And speaking of zero technical difficulties, it is that time where it's time to talk about maybe the hottest area of comic book development right now, which is television. And to talk about comic book television, we are bringing on none other than one half of the Geek and Sassy podcasting crew, longtime friend of the show, Jennifer Smith. Jenny, how are you tonight?
I am fantastic, but I will say, you know, part of the reason I volunteered for this is because I didn't realize we were doing like a separate recording, and my intention was to record with Tim Capel, and then I was denied that. You know, based on you guys'
the easiest way to solve that is? Have Tim on your own fucking show. How about that?
Yes, I know, but we have to find something to talk about first.
Believe me, from years of knowing Tim, there's not much.
Don't need much.
Yeah, there's not much in geek culture that he's not going to have some kind of knowledge of. So you got to have him. You got to have him on the show. But the other thing is, we will be sure to have you two on at some point in the future for one of our giant size episodes. As you know, on occasion we do have to come up with topics on the fly. So. Just keep an eye out for that kind of show to arise. But
you could add a new segment to Geek and Sassy called Underage Nerd Eye Candy of the Moment and have Tim Capel on each and every week for that.
I actually love that quite a bit. It might get weird.
It would just be Tom Holland over and over again. But I mean, what's wrong with that?
What was the podcast?
21?
Yeah, what was the podcast where we were somehow talking about Tom Holland and Angry Rice?
It was a giant size way back when. In the pre-Jennifer days, I believe, where we had, I want to say it was Tim and Stephanie on, and we were, you and I were being disgusting old men about Angry Rice, even though we didn't mean to be. And then
no, it wasn't intentional at all.
Yeah, exactly. I said we didn't mean to be.
Yeah.
And then Tim and Stephanie were being disgusting old non-gender specific terms about Tom Holland, even though I don't think they meant to be.
Well,
this pre-Spider-Man Tom Holland, even.
Yeah.
I mean,
it would have been like once he was announced, like right around the time he was. Maybe Civil War had just come out, or they were ramping up
like
towards
that.
Civil War. Like, I don't remember the exact time frame of it.
The details are quite inconsequential. But nevertheless, we are here to talk about television and in particular comic book television. And Jenny this weekend brought us a cavalcade, a veritable cornucopia indeed.
A veritable heaven.
A veritable heaven of trailers for comic book television series as well as information about these series. Where would you like to start off? We're gonna turn it over to you to kind of lead us here. as to what we're going to talk about, and then whatever we feel like getting to at the end, we can do in a little lightning round format. But what do you have to start us off with, Jenny?
I think the one that was the most intriguing for me was The Walking Dead. It was fairly typical for a trailer for The Walking Dead. Lots of people with incredulous faces, Rick's rousing speeches. They use the word world quite a bit. But, you know, they started off with the best, and that's Negan asking the dude if he was wearing...
I was about to ask, were you wearing your shitting pants?
Your shitting pants. I love it. I love that. But there was not enough Negan in the trailer, though. There was much too many flashes of, like, trash people and, like Sasha and Michonne in the car and
you mean oh God, what's her name? Rosita.
Not Sasha, Rosita. Yeah.
Sasha dead.
Sasha did. That's right. But
tell you what, there wasn't enough of in the trailer. Doctor
Carl being murdered.
Dr. Eugene.
That was another point I was going to make. Where's Eugene?
I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm not going to stand for it.
Well.
It may not bode well. You may not make it out of the first episode.
If we live in a Walking Dead world that has Carl and does not have Eugene Porter, then we do not live in a just Walking Dead world, in my opinion.
Is that the jumping off point for you?
It might be. It might literally be the point where I Seinfeld gif and just get up out of the room.
Oof.
Even after such a good season.
I'm mostly being hyperbolic, but...
Mostly.
Mostly. It's concerning.
Something else a little bit concerning, Morgan's line, I don't die. I'm like...
Which leads you to believe that he will, in fact, die.
And didn't they show, like, a brief snippet of him, like, he was facing off with one of the group in the woods, like, almost like they were at odds with one another. Yeah, so I wondered if he might be, like... I don't know, maybe the events of the previous season where he wound up killing that guy might have been causing him to break a little bit and be slipping back into his what was that episode? Clear, I believe it was called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where he was unstable.
Yeah. Yep. Which, to me, is a lot more interesting. That's just my preference.
Not a fan of Jedi Morgan?
No, not that much. I mean, it's interesting in his dynamic with Carol, I think, but nah, I prefer...
Speaking of which, are they going to bone this season or not?
God damn it, I hope so. I really hope so. I want Carol to bone somebody, either him or Daryl.
Or both.
By the time
Can it be both? Can it be both simultaneously?
As we know, if there's two of them, one of their fingers may indeed taste like batteries. So... It's,
I'm all for the Carol boning somebody as long as we don't have to have a boring episode at a set at a carnival surrounding the boning. Just have it be a scene that opens the episode and continue on with a good episode.
After so many years, will there be dust in her hooch?
It's possible.
No. Not my girl Carol. Did you see her?
She was badass, yeah. That's what I was going to say. I was happy to see Carol act like a badass again. We've had to deal with quiet, serene Carol for so long. It's really refreshing to see her just grab a shotgun or whatever the hell it was she grabbed and just start blasting fools.
Cover your ears, bitches. Carol's back. I liked that little snippet where it looked like they were on a rooftop somewhere, and there was a graffiti flower on the concrete, and she was looking at it, and I was like, "Look at the flower."
Yeah. No, I don't think I even noticed that until you just mentioned it.
Yeah. But I love the little Easter eggs and things that they put in there like that. But I'm excited about it. I know I have the compendium, the third one. I haven't read it all, but I know that after the war with Negan, there's a huge time skip, which they allude to in the last scene of the trailer.
Right. I was going to ask what you guys made of that last scene, because it seems to me like they are intentionally trying to make viewers think that maybe they're going to reveal that it was all a dream, that Rick wakes up in the hospital, and because of the way it's shot.
Did Rick at one point read Word Up magazine?
So
is that
Jenny,
a wrestling reference? I'm kidding.
I have no idea what that was a reference to.
Oh my God, you people, and I'm the white person in the group apparently. Greg, it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine.
And drink Coronas from the can?
Oh my God, never mind. Where's JT Rosero when you need him? And quite frankly, I would suggest that we move on.
But from what I read, I don't think it's meant to look like it's a dream. I think that at the end of the war with Negan, from what I understand, Negan breaks his leg really badly, and it doesn't heal properly. He has to walk with a cane after that, and that's why they showed the cane. And then he has a very dramatic look change, like his hair is cut off real short, and he has this long beard. Given that it's a time jump between 2 to 5 years. And so I think that's probably what it's alluding to more than, hey, he's been dreaming this whole time.
Or that the dispossessed soul of Herschel has inhabited Rick's body and they are becoming one individual.
Oh,
that could be. And hey, while we're dealing with old references here, I understand that Negan's been hit with a few shells, but he don't walk with a limp. So that's also something. But no, I thought that just for the trailer that it was meant to invoke that. I don't think it's going to actually be that on the show. I don't think certainly they wouldn't go there and pull a Dallas. But I do think that it's pretty clever of them to throw that in there. And I have no idea where it's going because I haven't read the comics or anything. But you mentioning a time jump, that would make sense. Nick, what do you make of the hop, skip, and the jump into the future, perhaps?
Yeah, I'd be all for it. Maybe give him a chance to recast Chandler Riggs, get that asshole a haircut. Any of those options would be good.
Get a damn haircut.
See the continued evolution of Dr. Eugene Porter's mullet. I think there's a lot of potential in these things.
What if in the future he has no mullet?
What kind of future are you envisioning, Greg? A future not worth
it's
living in.
It's an apocalyptic show.
Frankly. So, what's your point? Do you have a point, or are you just saying things?
Dignitude. Speaking of...
Also, it would make a lot of sense from the perspective of not doing another infant, kind of recurring character so soon after Judith. This way you could kind of age up Maggie's kid right there in
good
3
point.
years without having to stage again.
Speaking of which, when is Judith going to look like her age? Because it feels like time has not been passing for her the way it has for others. Or maybe it has, and I'm just nuts. What do you guys think?
I think it's been a subtle difference. I mean, it hasn't really bothered me that much.
I often forget Judith is even there until they make a point of showing her
into the show.
When she was younger, and she was a baby. They did a good job of making sure that finding supplies for her was kind of an integral part of the show. And now that she's toddler age, it's almost like they just put her in a crib and walk away from her for 3 episodes.
Yeah, you just occasionally see her eating.
Yeah,
and somebody will say who's got Judith, or this person's with Judith, she's watching Judith, or whatever.
Which reminds me, speaking of Judith eating all the time, if I have my way, that's what the Hobgoblin one day will be doing in a Spider-Man film, eating all the time.
There we are.
Because we will have a fat Hobgoblin finally, which we need to have. So, what's next on the list, Jenny?
For me? There's the Arrow. The Arrow. Coming from an amazing season that we've talked about several times.
Oh, yes.
And in watching the trailer, it was so good to see, them recap the last season and just remind you how freaking cool it was. Adrian, oh God,
I know,
awesome.
yeah. Using him to set the stage for the new season,
I loved it.
Yeah.
And my thoughts were that the action looked really good, and I always have to watch it live because I'm an insane person and I cannot wait till the next day. Yep. And it always looks terrible. So I'm watching the trailer on the laptop and I'm like, oh my God, this is what it's supposed to look like.
Well, that's right.
Yeah,
You guys have
so much
crappy
better.
Dothan CW.
Yes. Yeah, that was exactly my experience, Jenny. No one else gets it because my CW. I think Nick's seen my Dothan CW before, and it is atrocious.
Maybe only once. Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's it's like watching Scramble Vision pay-per-views back in the day. It's
but I just can't. I can't wait. Like
either. Yeah. I literally can't wait because if I do, my mom will call me at 8 o'clock after the show ends and say, "I can't believe that Tommy just came back to life and proved Nick right."
You guys laugh now. Make your jokes while you can, Greg.
No, I'm with you.
The day of reckoning is soon approaching.
I agree. My other thought was, oh fuck, Katie Cassidy is back, and what the heck?
To be fair, at least they're going to do the much more interesting version of Laurel as Black Siren rather than having it be Black Canary.
Is. It's better, but it still just makes me just go.
I get the feeling though that Jenny would rather have Katie Cassidy put into a canon alongside your Carl from The Walking Dead and my Karen Page from Daredevil, and launched into a nearby star known as the Sun.
Yes,
is that correct?
And if I could sneak Susan Williams in there, I'm good.
Oh,
the Susan Williams problem seems to have rectified itself. So I think we
good.
Can calm down about that one.
I think that she's been mortified and probably put into a catatonic state after her encounter with Adrian Chase.
Now, granted, I will once again, I didn't hate Susan Williams as much as you guys did, but at least she was better than fucking McKenna Hall or whatever that police chick's name from season 1 was.
I don't even remember her. I remember her existing, but I don't remember what her character was like or if I liked her or not.
She didn't have a character.
Well, speaking of not having a character, though, no, I'm with you. I could do with no Laurel, but if we're gonna have Laurel, I'm glad it's Black Siren and not her as Black Canary again.
I couldn't tell, but was there any new Felicity footage in that trailer?
No, she was missing from it,
which is worrisome.
It is, but. No, I'm not entertaining that thought whatsoever. It's just you can't give it away. I mean, you already gave away then Katie Cassidy, and then the new Black Canary.
Right, but you gave away Katie Cassidy, the new Black Canary, Diggle,
and Wild
Dog, Curtis, I think, as well. So somebody's got to die, right?
Well, damn.
Somebody besides Oliver's baby mama has to die, right?
Yeah, she's
obviously dead. Yes.
Yeah, she should be, quite frankly.
Another motherfucker who didn't die, and that was Deathstroke. Thank God.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God, that was the best. Like the way what I loved about this trailer.
You just went full clueless for that. Oh my God, that was awesome.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You will not even believe what my favorite part of the trailer was.
Tell us.
I don't know what his dynamic is with Ollie. I mean, it kind of looks like they're working together. Kind of looks like they're fighting.
Well, he had promised Slade that he was going to help him find his son. So I'm thinking that at some point Slade's going to leave for a little bit, and then when he comes back, for whatever reason, Oliver is not going to be able to help him anymore, and that's going to put him at odds again. Is my thought on the matter. But
you already are my son, Ollie. You're my little baby Deathstroke.
And of course, it's revealed that Slade's true son is, of course, Tommy Merlin.
Which would be great, as it would give Deathstroke even more reasons to hate Ollie. But that whole dynamic, the way that they set up Adrian's monologue at the beginning when he was explaining to Oliver what was going to happen, and how that sets up what appears to be the theme of the next season, and the effects and the ramifications of that going forward, versus Slade's monologue. Because like you said, Jenny, they did a brilliant job of not making it evident whether Slade and Ollie are ultimately going to be on the same side or not. Because yes, there's a shot of them shaking hands, but there's also a shot of them facing each other down in the dark. Mm-hmm. And we also, did you guys notice, we got footage from last year that we have not seen before. Like there was footage of the baby mama running off in the background. There was,
yeah.
A few scenes of Felicity and the others. There was a scene of Deathstroke where he said, "You lot are on your own," which we didn't see any of that in the season finale.
Well, I would assume that's probably actually from this season. They'll probably recreate the closing moments of the previous season from the perspective of those on the island whenever it becomes time to reveal who survived and who didn't.
Which means that there's still a chance, even though it's on network television, I feel like they could get away with one of Deathstroke channeling his inner Sully from Commando long enough to look at the rest of the gang and say, "Get fucked," and go off and save himself. But,
it's like you wanted to do a voice there, and you decided halfway through that no, I'm just going to give it.
I'm just going to do it normal. I'm going to do it straight. Yeah. I could have done it with Deathstroke's voice, or I could have done it with Sully's voice.
You started it as Sully, and then you decided not to, like halfway through. Yeah. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Somebody else I noticed was missing was Speedy.
I'm sure she's off on a journey of self-discovery.
Of course.
She went to the other side of the island to discover herself.
Yes.
And then she got blown up.
She and Caitlin are actually off together on a mutual journey of self-discovery.
In all seriousness, though, she does seem to be one of the popular theories of someone that didn't make it off the island. I've seen that bandied about in some of the online Arrow forums and groups and stuff.
I'd be fine with it.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I like the character, but I think it's pretty clear they don't really have an idea of what to do with her at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think the writers kind of have been spinning their wheels with her for a while now.
I agree, especially last season. But I think I like her a lot. But the only thing that would give me pause about killing her off, really, would be that I feel like it would wouldn't it kind of invalidate Malcolm Merlin's sacrifice if they immediately killed off who he sacrificed himself for?
That's a good point, to a certain extent, yeah.
And then you have to go through the effects on Oliver, so then it just feels like fridging. And, like,
sure.
We've done that, like, with Oliver, so let's just not do that anymore.
Oliver is just in a perpetual cycle of torture.
Right.
It's not always his fault, damn it. But no, it looked awesome. This was actually, I put on Twitter, this of all the trailers that they showed this weekend, I think this one was the one that had the biggest effect on me because it was put together like a really smart movie trailer in that it didn't give you any answers. It just posed interesting questions.
Yep.
And I think that was kind of the opposite approach taken by some of the other shows in their trailers, and it really, really worked in a big way for me.
I agree with that. What's next?
Next, I believe, do we want to stick with the CWDC shows, or do we want to go ahead and move on to our next big one and get that out of the way?
Let our TV correspondent make the call.
Trisha Takanawa, your thoughts?
Well, my third choice on this list was The Defenders. But I do have comments about the other CW shows.
Yeah, let's jump into those real quick. We got time.
Okay. You know, I was not too thrilled with the Supergirl finale. So when I finally watched the trailer tonight, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised. You know, I found Kara to be a bit holier than thou last season. She was just a little too, I don't know.
No, I know what you're saying. They took
goody two-shoes? Is that right?
Well, I think that's kind of her gimmick in a way, but in season 1, she was so much more at times, and there were times in season 2 she was too, but in season 1 she came off as just a genuinely great person who was understanding of everyone else around her in the same way that Superman would be, you know, or Wonder Woman for that matter. And I think at times in season 2 they did. There were a few times, I think Nick and I talked about it around the mid-season point, there were times, especially in the first half of the season, where it felt like they had lost track of why people liked Kara. I think Nick and I both made that point at one point during watching the show. So, yeah, I agree with you on that.
And I always just kind of chalked it up to my personal preference for superheroes because I just kind of tend to prefer the darker versions or the more smart-ass or the flawed versions. So, you know, she's just not my normal taste in a superhero. But in this trailer, she looks like she has a little bit of she's having some sort of identity crisis. She's not going to be Kara anymore. She's doesn't think she can have a normal life, so she wants to try to give that up. Looks like she's trying to go full out superhero all the time. So I think that's an interesting way to go with her. For me, a little bit more of an attitude.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with you. I was probably looking forward to the Supergirl trailer the least.
Me
because
too.
I think it was probably the show that I enjoyed the least of the four this past season, and even though I still liked it, it just wasn't as consistent as the others. But I really liked this trailer. I thought it was. I think the angle of Supergirl, going dark, so to speak, and then having to be brought back into the light is something we've seen told with Superman in the comics before and on TV shows before, and it's a good story worth telling, and especially if the other shows can kind of pick up the light elements, especially I'm looking at The Flash, needs to be a little bit less depressing this year, I think.
Yes.
But Supergirl can stand to add a little bit of weight to it, and just throwing this out there, maybe to lose a little bit of that supporting cast along the way.
I'm assuming you have someone in mind.
Well, I don't mean to tell tales out of skew, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen. It's not for me to say. I'm just – all that I would suggest is that some might say James Olsen has characteristics not unlike someone who could be considered – someone who could be confused with someone who might be considered to be a candidate for someone who could one day get shot into the sun. Nick, your thoughts on the Supergirl trailer?
How about we just blow up Catco with James and Cat Grant and Snapper Carr all inside?
Yes,
and just have the building go.
I love it.
Like,
I love it.
It kind of fixes everything about the show in one fell swoop, But
particularly Snapper Carr, and we won't have to hear any more about Journos.
Oh my God, yeah. No, I like the trailer. I didn't love it, but it was good. It has me intrigued to see, what they're going to kind of do this season from a larger perspective. I I believe the actor's name is Adrian Pasdar.
Yes,
popping
please.
up in the trailer. I think that's interesting. I don't know what kind of role he's going to play or what's going on there. But
who is this actor? I'm trying to remember it from the trailer.
He was on Heroes.
He was on Heroes. He played the mayor in Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's right.
I like him.
Yep. He was in the first couple seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. Yep.
Was he? I don't remember that.
I believe he was. Yeah, he played the general.
Oh yeah. I got you. Yeah.
Stonefish Cutter. I'm going to call him.
Stonefish Cutter. Yep, that was him. But yeah, so I liked the trailer. Didn't wow me or anything, but it certainly didn't underwhelm me either. So yeah, decent trailer, fair, not too shabby.
Now, am I wrong, or did I just miss it? Was there a Legends trailer?
There was, and it was
there
awesome.
Was. Yeah.
I fucking missed it.
It was
I didn't
amazing.
even watch it.
It was so good, in my opinion.
Well, now I'm pissed.
I loved that Legends trailer.
Tell us what you liked about it, Nick.
Yes, tell me about it.
I love the fact that of the 4 trailers for the 4 big CW shows, it was the one that focused the most on where this upcoming season is going, rather than providing you with a recap of the previous season. It was almost entirely like it threw you in with that closing shot of the previous season of them crashing into the alternate timeline, and it was like, oh shit, and then it was kind of just showing you all the several of the different ways time was fucked up, and the dynamic of them trying to go out and set things right. Had some cool stuff in there with an implied Rip subplot that he still has an active role to play on the show.
Yes.
You just kind of had a lot of really, really cool things going on in there, and it seems like it just continues to have that tone and that sense of irreverence about it that only Legends can get away with in the DC CW universe. So I am extremely pumped for that.
To recap,
I think
you
Legends...
get to see dinosaurs. You get to see dinosaurs and clowns in this.
Dinosaurs and clowns, yeah, that was pretty good. I think honestly, the 18-episode format has benefited Legends at this point, but I think I've gotten to a point with Legends where I've enjoyed it so much that I kind of wish they would go to the full 24 or 26 episode season.
Me too.
If they could manage it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a lot more of those less good episodes
That's
Possibly.
true. You probably would, you know, but
stretch that budget out.
That's true. That's a good point. I just feel like there weren't any of those the entire back half of last season. And so it makes me wonder if it's not possible to at least...
Plus, it's gotten to the point where I can overlook the CGI at times on the show because the character interactions are so fun, are so entertaining.
And the show is constantly trying something unexpected. Like, you never know what you're going to get when you tune into an episode of Legends, whereas stuff like Supergirl, Flash, and Arrow... I mean, they may throw you the occasional curveball, but by and large, the episodes have kind of a certain formula to them, and they kind of have a similar tone, whereas Legends is kind of this wonderful grab bag, this assortment of, like, different concepts and tones and stories from throughout the DC universe. So it's just such a cool little show that's turned into when I never would have expected it when it was first announced.
Yeah, and just to differ a little bit, I thought it was a good trailer, but I actually didn't think it showed me enough of where the season's going. I thought it showed me a lot of clips from what looked like the same episode, but it didn't leave me with that sense of, man, I wonder what the future holds for the crew. It was still really entertaining, though. I thought it was a really good trailer. Very excited to see where it all goes. I can already tell that Mick is going to be a standout once again this season. He became a favorite of the HTF crew last year. And then there was the Flash. We haven't talked about the Flash trailer. Has everybody watched that?
Yep, I did watch that one.
I guess I'll start off the conversation on this one. Not really sure what to make of it, to be honest. There was good stuff, to be sure. I enjoyed The Flash last season, even though I'm kind of over emo, depressed Barry. But I think there were some signs of hope in that trailer that we may be getting Barry back, and when we get him back, that he's going to perhaps have a different outlook on things. Not sure what I make of a Shogun character that appears to have... I have no idea. Appears to have jumped from the set of Ninja Turtles 3 into the Flash. And it's possible it's a famous DC character, but I'm not aware if it is. And that's, whatever. But I enjoyed seeing Wally and his interaction with Cisco and Jay and all that good stuff. But what I would like to have seen out of it is a more recognizable villain, or B, a more season 1 type tone to the show, because I would like to see the Flash, and this is just me, I would like to see the Flash get back to the characters enjoying being the Flash and Kid Flash again. So,
I mean,
what were your guys' thoughts on the trailer?
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of just seemed like a trailer for the first, 2 episodes more than a trailer for the season.
Yeah, agreed.
I think we all know that they're pretty much going to do the same thing they did with Flashpoint last year, in that, this absence of Barry Allen is going to be pretty much over with by, I would say, at the most 3 episodes. I have a hard time seeing them stretching it out any further than that. So really, it's hard to get a read on the season, or really even call this a season trailer, when we all know that's coming some point relatively early on in the season's run.
I agree with that. I like that it was mostly from Iris's point of view.
Yes.
That was interesting to me, because it got better towards the end, but she didn't have much to do that much last season, and I think she's a really good actress, and I'm hoping that maybe this beefs up her role a little bit more, if it's going to be focused on her, until Barry gets back. With her maybe leading the team a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, I think one of the things that they started to get right last year at times, even though it sounds weird saying that given the general tenor of the season and what the main plot was, but I felt like last year they finally started to give Iris a chance to play more of an active role in episodes, besides just being in peril all the time, although ultimately the story was about her being in peril.
Right.
Which is fine, because it's the same thing as Lois. Lois is going to be in peril, but it's how you get her in peril that is the key. And I thought they did a better job of that last year. of not making it where she's just weak and hapless and idiotic and everything. She was really smart last year, and I think if they continue that, they'll continue building her character into what it can and should be. And I agree with you. She's a really good actress and adds a lot to the show. And maybe they can spend those early episodes focusing on her, letting her lead the team, like you said, and also building up Wally a little bit, because I still think Wally needs quite a bit of development from what we've seen so far.
What do you guys think about old Tom Felton not being back?
I was a little bummed out, to be honest.
Me too.
It's weird to say that because I was very hard on that character when they first introduced him, and I grew to really, really like Julian. He really became one of my, I don't want to say one of my favorites, but he became a character I very much enjoyed on the show. So I'm a little bummed out to see that he's not going to be a regular this year.
I am too. And I'm hoping. I wasn't expecting to see HR, any version of HR, in the trailer, but I'm hoping that,
Oh, there must be Wells. There will be Wells.
There must be Wells. Yes, that's all I want. I mean, just please. I mean, I can give up Julian if there's a Wells.
Right. Oh, certainly. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Obviously, that's an easy. I mean, I can give up anyone on the show except for Joe, as long as I get Wells.
Yes.
I got to have me some Wells. Nick, your thoughts on Julian leaving, and or at least as a full timer, and also anything else from the trailer that stood out to you?
I don't really care about Julian leaving. I can take him, I can leave him, and if they have to leave him, that's fine. I think but yeah, that's the other thing is Caitlin was there pretty much from the get go.
Yes, we didn't talk about that. That's a good point.
I was about to say, as long as Caitlin isn't there, then I kind of feel like it makes sense for Julian to not be there. But if she, off-screen developments, Greg.
Indeed.
Right, unless it's not even Caitlin. Who knows? Perhaps it's an imposter. We don't know exactly who the villain's going to be for sure. We don't know
the Thinker.
We don't know if it is the Thinker. He has certain ways of combating the Flash that are out of the norm from what we've seen on the show to this point. So who knows?
You mean he's not a speedster?
Thank God. Yes.
I don't even know who that character is.
He's not going to be a speedster who just happens to be a little bit faster than the last guy that was faster than Barry.
Or to be the god of speed.
Yes, which is what I call Dragon Ball Z syndrome. He's even more powerful than the last guy that we said was more powerful than the last guy. Which also sounds like a local city manager. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, so out of the four, which are you most looking forward to, and which has you the most worried about the upcoming season? Jenny?
Arrow, I am most looking forward to. I'm sure I'm not going to be worried about Legends, even though I didn't see that trailer. I'm going to say The Flash.
Interesting. I can understand where you're coming from.
Maybe it's just because they didn't give us much.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I think based on the trailers, there's a lot to go on. Arrow, I am most looking forward to, and the Flash. I'm looking forward to all of these shows. Obviously, I think we all are. We all enjoy these shows. They're all great. But I think Flash is the one that I think for me needs to change things up the most of the shows in terms of its tone and things of that nature. Nick, what are your thoughts on that? What are you most looking forward to, and what are you most worried about?
Most looking forward to Legends, and most concerned about Supergirl.
Gotcha. Well, we have another major television property that had a trailer over the weekend, and that would be the Netflix series The Defenders coming out, that's going to bring together Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Daredevil to take on the evil that is Sigourney Weaver. And the trailer, we got a brand new trailer, actually two. We got a little teaser on Friday, I believe, that included Stan Lee narrating it, and even an appearance at the end by the Punisher, which is promising, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got the full-length trailer that followed. So, Nick, I want to start with you on this one because I know you're heavily invested in this, as we all are to different degrees. And what were your thoughts on the two, the teaser and the full-length trailer? And what did they make you feel about the Defenders?
Yeah, the teaser was cool and everything. It was, Stan doing a nice little Stan monologue, which is nice and everything. But the trailer itself, I thought was outstanding. I really, really enjoyed it. It shows, granted, it's really hard to, make a long-term conclusion about action scenes based just on what we see in the trailer. But I would argue that the action in that trailer alone, those 3 minutes alone, represent a massive improvement over the action scene in Iron Fist and something of a return to form for the Marvel Netflix universe from an action standpoint. Loved the character interactions, even though Danny Rand unfortunately has to be a part of said character interactions. Thought Jessica, in my opinion, stole every line she had in the trailer, was the shining star.
Not that you're biased.
Not that I'm biased, but she was the shining star of the show by far, in my opinion. And I continue to be really, really excited about this, and it looks like something, I don't know, man. It just looks really cool. They've built it. They've taken their time. They have worked a body part, and they have sold, for God's sakes, and they're getting ready to tell a story. So, I'm on board fully.
Appropriately enough, we've gone to a time limit draw, but we're going to go a little overtime. Gorilla Monsoon has just come out and given us, unfairly I might add, 5 more minutes for the contest. So, which may turn into 5 more minutes.
Which will lead to Greg bitching about it for the next calendar year.
That's exactly right. And still to this day, because it was unfair and it should have never happened. But in any event, and now that, Jenny, was a wrestling reference that few will understand. But
you don't say.
Yeah. Where I differ from Nick, I'm also excited about the Defenders. I agree that the action looks like a step in the right direction based on what I've heard about Iron Fist. I thought the action in the trailer was excellent. I actually liked the teaser bit more than I did the full-length trailer. I loved the Stan Lee narration. I thought that was so cool. I love the Punisher cameo. And I generally like the less is more approach to trailers. And the full-length trailer was good. I liked it. Everybody came off really cool on it, except, even Iron Fist. To me, I haven't watched the show, so I don't have the bias against Iron Fist yet. But even his stuff didn't come off bad to me in the trailer. I think the only thing that gave me pause, and I will probably be the odd man out here on this, I didn't laugh at any of the jokes in the trailer, which thankfully these shows don't go for humor very much. But like the horn line, that was okay, I guess, but nothing really, like the moments that were clearly meant to get laughs from me because of the pauses and the timing and everything. For whatever reason, I was just like, well, that was kind of lame.
Well, that scene, the last one on the subway where she drinks the beer and like, it's been a long day. That was pretty good.
Thank you,
Jenny. Well, Jessica in her own right has her own like unique charisma about
Oh yeah.
That arguably the others don't have at times. But
code speak for Greg believes that to be true, but doesn't want to agree with me. So
no. No, I've never. When have I? Listen, I am just saying that you have an inherent bias towards Jessica Jones. I am just saying, as an impartial observer, Jessica Jones is the most charismatic of the four. The actress is the most charismatic, and the character is the most interesting of the four, based on what we've seen on the Netflix shows. Now, and I should preface that I haven't watched Luke Cage and I haven't watched Iron Fist yet, but I will. But there are times,
allegedly, again,
arguably, there are times when Matt Murdock is not the most charismatic man in the world. He's good. He's good. I like Matt Murdock, but there are episodes of his show where he's a little uninteresting, I think, at times. But that being said, I'm really excited for the Defender. It looks really cool. I hope they don't have a lot of jokes in it because it doesn't look like they're going to land for me that much. But what are your thoughts, Ginny? I thought this was a cool trailer. Nick loved it, obviously. What are your thoughts?
I loved it too, and I agree with you guys about the action. I think that them doing that little hallway scene, I like that a lot. Kind of a callback to some Daredevil scenes, but I really just want everybody to be complete dicks to Danny the whole time. And then when Matt says whatever it is your hand can do, I laughed out loud because that shit's funny. And he's like, it's chi, and Jessica's like, no, it's not. So I just want them to be ripping on him the whole time. That's where the humor is, Greg. Them ripping on Danny the whole time. And especially Jessica. I just want her to be just completely disdainful of him and treat him like shit.
And them ripping on him kind of makes sense because, I mean, not even approaching it from a God, I hated that season standpoint, but if you look at his character from that season, he was basically like this giant, naive man-child for all 13 episodes, so it kind of makes sense that, you know, especially in the case of Jessica, who is kind of this hardened, cynical woman, that she would see a verbal target in Danny Rand.
Yes. I think it's going to be beautiful. Honestly, I cannot wait for it. And Kristen Ritter she has that thing, that Jessica thing, and she's just perfect. And I disagree with Greg about Daredevil. He has a presence. It's low key. It's not always. When he puts on the suit, he's a different dude to me. But I like both of those dudes. I like low key, like quietly spoken, even, you know, just gentle Matt. And then I like, you know, Daredevil kicking all the ass. I don't know. How was that not interesting? I don't know. You get distracted by Karen crying all the time.
That's true. I do. But I'm not trying to mean that as a critique of the actor or anything like that. I think he does a good job. I just think that in season 2 at times, I guess the writing made me not care about Matt at times in season 2. When I was pretty much just at times waiting for the Punisher to show up again.
Right.
What are you going to do with the Punisher show when you're so you know, such a big fan of this portrayal of Frank Castle, and yet Deborah Ann Wall is the only other like major confirmed recurring character to this point?
Well,
she's going to fast forward all of her shit.
Yeah, exactly. It depends on if she's crying all the time. If she's not, my problem is not with Deborah Ann Wall or with the character of Karen Page as it is in the comics or what have you. My issue is with the fact that you have a character, particularly any character, it wouldn't matter if she was a man or a woman, but particularly that she's a female character, the lead female on the show, and they have her crying in every moment of the show that you see her in.
I just don't think that's true, though. I just don't think that's true. I mean, she was pretty badass in some parts. I mean,
I can point to you in every episode of the season at least one scene where she cries.
Well, she got into some shit. You know, it's not like she was sitting at her fucking desk answering the phone. She was out doing shit, trying to figure shit out. It was traumatic. She was attacked. You know,
Plus, let's not forget the events of season 1 where they clearly hint at some sort of traumatic past for her that is yet to be fully revealed. So I think perhaps, there's a little bit more going on with that character than we have been told to this point.
Perhaps that could be true, but I can't give them the benefit of the doubt on that because all I have to go on is what I have to go on, and I'm just saying I'm ready to see a side of her besides constantly in terror of everything that's going on around her. At a certain point, you'd think she'd adjust and realize, hey,
didn't she figure out the whole conspiracy theory thing in season 2 and go face down Clancy Brown's character though?
Yes,
she did.
She sat across that table from him.
So you want? Okay, never mind. We're turning this into we're getting off the rails.
Yeah, we are. I want to talk about Sigourney Weaver. That's who I want to talk about.
Yes.
Okay.
I liked her quiet intensity. She's not going to be one of those over the top villains, I don't think. She seems to be in cahoots with Madame Gal, which I like. Yeah. Now, I like two bad ladies trying to fuck people over. I don't know. That's awesome. But I don't know her angle yet. I don't know her character at all. So, and she is incredible. So I'm just super stoked to see her in a villain role.
Yeah, I was really impressed since I don't know anything about the character, and it appears to be an original character that they're using for the show. She looks like she's going to be awesome. I mean, she's a great actress. So, yeah, that looked cool. What do you make of the amnesiac take on Elektra?
Now, Elektra was not something that I was fond of in the back part of season 2 of Daredevil. So I honestly don't give two shits about Elektra. But, whatever. I'll go with it. Can she die?
Now, see, if Elektra, I would be willing to sacrifice Elektra if it could also do away with Karen. Do we have a deal?
Why do we make death deals? Why is this a thing that we do?
Hey, it's a death pact, We've got the Carl for whoever. I don't even remember who the Carl deal was for, but Susan Williams.
There's probably not a character out there that is dear enough to me that I wouldn't exchange their life if it meant getting rid of fucking Carl. So Carl for an open contract.
Good Lord, man. He's just a boy.
Wow.
An idiot boy. A stupid idiot, if you will.
What about Ultimate Spider-Man?
They've already killed him off.
Well, that's true. Well,
what about the other Ultimate Spider-Man?
Well, that's fine. Yeah, kill him off. If it means get rid of Carl. Yeah, sure. Where did I sign?
Good Lord, man. Are there any other TV properties that we haven't talked about to this point that we should?
No.
I'm sure there probably are, but I'm past my time as it is.
That's true. We are desperately
knocking on the door.
We are desperately out of time on the format sheet, ladies and gentlemen. We do thank Miss Jennifer Smith for joining us and sparking some lively discussion here about the various exciting comic book properties coming up. And as I did in the prior segment, I will propose a lightning round question to the three of us. What is the show coming up, the comic book TV show in the next little while, maybe that was talked about at STCC, that you're most excited to see? I'll start with you, Jenny.
I'm going to go with the Defenders. It starts next month, so I don't have that much longer to wait. So I'm ready for it.
I've got to watch Luke Cage, and I've got to read the summary of Iron Fist.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
No, absolutely not. No, you're going to watch the damn thing, Greg. I'm going to remind you of how much you begged for this. You wanted this, Greg. You asked for it. You brought this on yourself.
Did I do this to you? Well, I didn't know you in those days, but I wish I could go back to Batman Forever and give you this same spiel back when you were little Nick Puke.
But then I went and watched it, didn't I? Didn't I go and watch it? And you have to take your medicine with Iron Fist the same way I took my medicine with Batman Forever.
You watched Batman Forever again for our wonderful listeners out there, which you can find in the archives. Now, as for me, I am probably going to go with Arrow as my most anticipated show coming up. Defenders would be a very close second or third there, along with Legends. But what about you, Nick?
Defenders.
Gotcha. Well, Jenny, thanks again for joining us. Tell people where they can find you on social media and if there's anything you would like to plug.
Well, thank you for letting me sit in, even though there was no Tim Capel, but whatever. I am at Jenny Cruz 2814 on Twitter, and also at Geek and Sassy on Twitter and on Instagram. We recorded an episode last night. It was our first one in about 6 weeks, so it's pretty much a rambling mess, but shorter than our usual fare, 2.5 hours. Miranda went to a convention recently, and she catches us up with that. Has some great stories of great people that she met there. So that should be coming out probably next week, whatever.
Including, didn't she meet Malcolm Merlin himself?
She did. It was awesome. So listen to that. That's Geek and Sassy episode number 14. And hopefully it will not be another 6 weeks before we get to record again. And my apologies to Nick Duke for once again being bumped from the lineup.
Wait a minute. I was supposed to be on this most recent one? I don't even remember that.
I wanted to schedule you for July, and then,
Oh, that's right. I forgot about it. I had honestly forgotten at this point.
At this point, I've determined that I'm doing the Jimmy Kimmel and Matt Damon thing with you.
That's fine. I like that. Let me put it to you like this. Once September rolls around, I ain't going to care, because I ain't going to have no availability for like 4 months. So
That's true. Yeah. You'll be drunk
now,
for 4 months.
Jesse, you won't have any availability.
Oh, for God's sake.
Two different businesses.
Yeah, businesses.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, Jenny. You guys do great work, and we will have you on here again, I'm sure, in the near future. And with that being said, we're getting ready to take yet another commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to have Todd Weber. That's right, the manager, Todd Weber, join us to discuss DC films. And there's all kinds of news coming out about DC films, even as we speak. So, thanks, Jennifer, for joining us, and we will be back right after this message.
Coming soon from the creative minds of the Place to Be Nation Pop Network. The audio adaptation that no one was asking for, but everyone deserved. Place to Be Nation Pop Comic Book Theater presents Watchmen, an audio feast for your ears. Thrill to the exploits of the comedian.
These are demons. It's an intergalactic invasion into this space through people. They have sexual rituals, some of the most ancient Egyptian rituals where they believe they are possessed by entities, space aliens.
Silk Spectre.
Good. Hey, licking your finger, it's like licking a battery. It's all sort of...
Night Owl.
Yeah, well, you know how it goes. Sometimes I come down here and sit around a little bit, think about the times when we were making the towns, doing the drugs, fucking the rats.
Dr. Manhattan.
Clearly you don't really care about what stimulates me.
Ozymandias.
Puta, the Soviets, Vietnam, anyone? Mila Jovovich?
And Rorschach.
But what it doesn't change is the fact, and this is something we can all agree on, that all of the whores and politicians will look up and they'll shout, "Save us, JR," and I'll look down and I'll whisper, "Mom."
You won't believe your ears. You won't believe the dark places your imagination will take you. Featuring cameos from some of your PTBN favorites.
Baby, that's quite a drop, I said.
Oh, they're just paying me to handle monsters from outer space? No.
Maybe it was a couple of guys and they overpowered him.
He cometh up and swerve, cut down like a flower.
Fly me to the moon, let me fuck amongst my stars. Oh, I guess Dr. Osterman finally arrived.
Okay, number one, big blue dick. You don't bring it up. It's big, it's there, it's wagging.
It's Watchmen, the greatest graphic novel of all time, as you've never heard it before. Transformed into the most self-referential collection of in-jokes on this or any other medium. Only from the Hard-Traveling Fanboys and Place to Be Nation Pop.
And we're back for the fourth and final of our segments on this special extended edition of the Rundown. And this is where we're going to talk about the DC Extended Universe, the film universe of DC Comics and Warner Brothers. And it just feels like there's more and more news coming out about this every day. Even as we talk right now, there's more news coming out. So without any further ado, let's bring on our DC Films expert guest to talk with us. You know him as the manager, Todd Weber. Todd Weber, welcome to the show, my friend.
Fanboys, whoa, hang on 1 second. I think I'm a little crispy. How's that?
Yeah.
Hot mic there. Fuck it. Hello. This is Todd Weber, and I'm doing great. It's an honor, always an honor, to be a part of the Hard-Traveling Fanboys on the air, as opposed to just behind the scenes, if you know what I mean.
And I do.
And this will be 2 weeks in a row for you, because you're slated to be on next week's show as well.
Yes, we better set up a recording time, huh?
Yes, we had better do that.
Yes, that would be an important thing. That's right. You see, Todd Weber is going to be joining us next week for a look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Thor: The Dark World. And we will be talking all about that movie at a later time. But right now, Todd has joined us. You know him, of course, from Conversation Comics, where he's been having a great series with Tim Capel. He's also the producer, not to tell tales out of school, the man who makes the magic happen each and every week, and the composer of the Hard-Traveling Fanboys theme song. But Todd is here to talk about these DC movies, so we're going to let you kind of start it off, Todd. Which topic would you like to discuss first from San Diego Comic-Con about the DC cinematic universe?
Well, I think we can only talk about the tangible Justice League trailer first, just because that's something we actually saw. We didn't hear reports about it, or there's a lot of speculation about some of the other things. Even though there was some actual news, there's going to be a lot of speculation about the other movies in the lineup. So let's just talk about Justice League first, as it is the next release for the DCEU.
Absolutely.
So, did all of you see the trailer?
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Yep. So we got some things confirmed in the trailer. We got to see Steppenwolf in all his glory. And we heard him do a monologue where he refers to they don't have Green Lanterns here, as far as I saw. He didn't even say green. He just said the lanterns aren't here.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. That's confirmation that they're going in that direction, and hopefully they'll have the money to do that. We also saw lots of great footage with the, I guess it's just 4, right, of Cyborg, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Aquaman. I guess it's 5. A lot of times,
5, yeah.
Yeah, in the Superman memorial scene, you just see 4 of them. You don't see Batman, I believe. And we saw a tremendous poster in the style of Alex Ross art.
Yeah, that might have been like one of the most buzzed about things to come out of the whole Comic-Con.
Yeah, and I adore that poster. I think it's brilliantly done, even if Gal Gadot looks a little bit like Jennifer Love Hewitt in it.
Hey, now I am okay.
Are you complaining about that, or is that a knock on one Gal Gadot or one Jennifer Love Hewitt?
Both are beautiful women, but Gal Gadot, it looked odd. Just it wasn't quite her. But maybe they're making her look a little bit more modern for this more modern take on Justice League, as opposed to the Wonder Woman movie we saw, which was set in the 19 teens.
Yeah, 19s. I like that.
19s, yeah.
So, I also saw lots of mother boxes in the trailer. What about you guys? So I think that's becoming not their Infinity Stones or an analog for them, but it's their MacGuffin. It's the thing that they're building the plot along about. And so,
oh sure, yeah.
The online scuttlebutt would have you believe that's the way they're going to tie Paradise Island and
Atlantis
and
Cyborg himself
all together, and the Flash is just there because, quote, he needs friends.
Well, Barry Allen is historic characterizations of Barry Allen is he's a nice guy, but not the most social butterfly, perhaps.
Right. That's a good point.
They're still trying to course correct. Well, we've only seen minutes of Ezra Miller as the Flash in an actual movie, so. We've got all these complaints about the way he looks and the way he seems, but we really haven't seen much of anything in an actual movie. And so much of the talk about DC movies has to rely on that. Well, we don't really just know just yet. DC has Justice League coming out in November and Aquaman coming out in the following November. And those are the only official movies with dates that we have at this point, or am I off base?
No,
I think there was a breaking report that came out just a little while ago that apparently Wonder Woman has been dated for 2019. But no, those would be the next two, and that would be it for the foreseeable future.
That's earlier than I would have expected Wonder Woman 2 to drop. I would expect Suicide Squad 2 to drop then, but not Wonder Woman 2. But maybe DC is just trying to... They know that there's going to be a goodwill and buzz for Wonder Woman 2. I don't know. I think... go ahead.
I was going to say, maybe like J.J. Dillon once did, they're trying to strike while the iron is hot.
Yes. Oh, you. You don't ever stop being you, do you?
Never.
So yeah, if they've actually attached a concrete date, that's still a whole nother year after Aquaman, is it not? Or it's at least 6 months.
Yeah, about 6 months. Yep. I think in summer, about a similar time frame to this one, just in 2019. So a 2-year gap between the first and the second.
And I've said this before. I mean, Marvel is so far ahead of them with their 3 movies a year, no matter what. I mean, they're just in cruise control. I mean, not meaning they're just phoning it in, obviously, but they've got this well-oiled machine. They've got scripts in the pipeline. They've got this vision, and they've got, they're just. I hate to compare Marvel and DC, but it is apples to apples. They're movies to movies, and so, we're looking at. If you're going to have one movie a year, it's got to be a killer, just got to be an outstanding film, or at least a very profitable film.
And I don't know when we want to get into this, because I think we're technically still supposed to be discussing the Justice League trailer, but I actually have some thoughts on. I think that DC is very clearly beginning to lay out the plans for how to get there, and it is all related to a certain announcement that was made during San Diego Comic-Con.
Right. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else we can talk about Justice League. I mean, we have the scene with Alfred talking to someone. Is he talking to Superman? Is he talking to a heretofore unseen or named character who might be a lantern of some sort?
I want it so desperately to be a lantern, but I am assuming it is Superman.
I am fairly confident it is Superman, because the version that I watched anyway, it looked like there was a little bit of an outline of a red cape fluttering in from the side of the screen. So I feel like it's most likely Superman there. But I would certainly mark out if we got to see a lantern in that situation. So we Steppenwolf, I think, appropriately cool. So
yeah. You know what we did see though, Greg? I don't know. Did you guys see the giant image of like the DC universe? They popped up on screen during like just the still image, the painting or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't think I paid any attention.
Guy Gardner is very much on that image, Greg. For the record, he is on the right side of the image, upper right hand corner, and he is there in full Guy Gardner attire, and it gave my heart such a flutter.
I'm gonna have to see more than just the core JLA part of that image. I know Hawkman you can see in there, and somebody said
Starfire.
You can even see Firestorm, which I'd mark out for.
Oh wow, yeah.
I saw the Anti-Monitor. I know was on there. So.
And how are you going to have an Anti-Monitor if you don't have a monitor first?
Right. I mean, that's what I was about to say. What indeed is the Anti-Monitor without a monitor?
I don't know. What indeed is a Flashpoint movie if you haven't even had a Flash movie yet?
Ooh, but we're getting ahead of
telling
ourselves.
Tales out of school.
Overall, Todd, what did you think of the trailer?
I'm encouraged. It seemed to be a little less goofy in tone than previous trailers I had seen. God, I love the Aquaman stuff. I'm getting more and more excited for this, and getting more and more on board for this version of Aquaman. Just, it's the only Aquaman we're going to get, and I think he's going to be awesome. So I'm getting on board. I was initially very reluctant. embrace the concept of a Polynesian Aquaman, but it's not about race necessarily. I just want the integrity of the lighthouse keeper and the Atlanta, and just to have a guy that I recognize from, say, the Jeff Johns books, or even earlier, even the Peter David series. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think we're done with Aquaman being a joke.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear based on they really continue to give him some of the best moments in each of these two trailers. I would argue that he comes off better than any character outside of Wonder Woman in both of these trailers. I think he's come off even better than Batman to this point.
And when he goes to a convention, he is just a rock star. You know, he's all in. He's embracing the fans, and it has this magnetic off-screen personality as well. So I think Momoa was good casting. And I'm looking forward to the film, and it seems like it's the most functional of the future DC releases, at least not counting Wonder Woman 2, which we know will probably be solid with the same team involved.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I think that Momoa just has this charisma, I think is the word, this natural charisma about him that bodes well for the character, that I really think by all rights should turn into a great movie. Everything that we've seen about the Aquaman movie looks great in my opinion, and in these Justice League trailers, especially this newest one, Aquaman comes off like a badass and like somebody that is going to jump off the screen in a way that maybe some of the other characters don't. So yeah, so far so good on everything Aqua related.
Yeah, and it's a good thing because that's the only film they have after Justice League for a whole year and a half. So, I think that's. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, this solo movie in November is going to be very solid, and then we have another 6 months before there is anything. But I'm not worried at all about the James Wan directed Aquaman. I think everything I've seen with the photos of the cast, the slight footage that I saw, just a little picture of Orm's underwater fleet for Atlantis, I'm starting to get excited about this whole thing.
Yeah, I feel like I liked the trailer myself as well. I don't know that I loved it necessarily, but I think that there is I think there's reason to be more optimistic anyway after this one. I think that this was and I liked the last trailer. I thought the last trailer was good and fun and all that. This one, to me, though, it at least it showed that there is going to be some compelling action. It looked brighter, too. That was the other thing that I was going to mention. Maybe it was just in my mind, but it looked like I didn't have any trouble seeing the color in Wonder Woman's costume in this trailer, or seeing it seemed like it was brightened up a little bit from the last trailer that we got, where everything was so dark. And even though it was cool, everything was so dark. And so I think that was good as well. I think my concerns would be, I still don't like what we're seeing out of the Flash to this point, although he did have one pretty good line, I thought, about pushing people out of the way and running. That was pretty fun, I thought. And the CGI, to me, still needs work, which obviously it's a trailer.
Yeah. And they're finishing up reshoots now, and they've got all the actors coming in individually, and Joss Whedon's overseeing that, but he's not getting a co-directing credit. It's still going to be credited as a Zack Snyder film. So we've got that news. Also, of note, Henry Cavill is not shaving his mustache for these reshoots. Have you heard?
Yeah, apparently he can't because of the Mission Impossible 6 commitment. So,
well, I was interested in the 2013 Cody Rhodes version of Superman. Personally,
I'm down with it.
Get that now.
I would love to see the 1978 Freddie Mercury version of Superman.
Oh.
The 1985 Bennett version of Superman.
There we go.
I can't do my Arnold now. I was going to do Arnold, but can't do it. So, yeah, Justice League is wrapping up, and we're all looking forward to it, and let's hope it does well and dominates the box office up until Star Wars comes out, right?
Absolutely. Nick, what were your thoughts on the trailer?
I liked it. I had a very similar reaction to the first time I saw the first trailer. It's just, while I would agree that I think they seem to have toned down the obvious attempts at humor a little bit, I still have some concerns. I think a lot of the effects look unfinished, which is to be expected because the movie doesn't come out till November, so they've got some time to fix it. In particular, I'll call out, because it's a scene I know that Todd was probably a huge fan of in the trailer, the scene where Aquaman drops down through the building and then comes out on the ground floor walking out. Great idea and concept, but it looked so green screen to me. Like, it looked like a George Lucas prequel level green screen job, just in my opinion. And I have a lot of concerns about the effects in this film, just based on what I've seen. But there just continues to be just something about it that I can't quite put my fingers on. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't want to be concerned about this film, but I still am, and maybe that'll wind up being to the film's benefit. Maybe ultimately, me keeping my expectations low is a good thing.
Well, it's a crucial film.
It is.
It really sets up the whole thing. I mean, we can look at just the Batman motivation. Batman hated Superman, wanted to kill him just a movie ago, and now he's going to go around the world and do all this stuff in Superman's name because Superman was a beacon and hope. That's a lot for me to buy. So I think maybe to me my main issue might be the Batman way we're seeing that set up. Plus, I hate the Owlman mask that I'm seeing so much of. I'm not thrilled so far with what I've seen out of that or the Ezra Miller Flash character. I've talked about that many times, and there's nothing I can do but just wait and see how that plays out. I suppose.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of like I mentioned this to Nick off air today that it's kind of like ever since I've seen any footage from this movie, I can't really, and even before I had seen the footage, I can't shake that I have a bad feeling about it. And that doesn't mean it's going to be bad because, like Nick said, keeping our expectations low is probably for the best because I think ultimately it theoretically anyway, it should increase the odds of me enjoying the movie. But there's just something that has given me the feeling that this isn't going to turn out well. And it's the same kind of feeling that I started to get towards the last promotional push of Batman v Superman when I started to feel like, oh man, I'm a little worried about how this is going to deliver in the theater. But that being said, I did like. There's a lot to like here. I'm very excited about Aquaman. Very excited about Wonder Woman. My concerns lie elsewhere. I do like that we're going to get a little bit more humor in this one, and I think Joss is probably going to oversee a lot of that. But kind of tied to Justice League, there is the big announcement that came out of the slate of DC EU movies that are planned. We got official announcements this weekend, guys.
Yeah, and I don't see Nightwing anywhere on that list, my friends.
That's a great point.
So, but that was last week's show. One more thing about about Justice League before we go on to the slate.
Sure, absolutely.
If I'm Joss Whedon and I've got reshoot control or I've got these scheduled reshoots, I make that movie as Wonder Woman centric as absolutely possible at this point. Wonder Woman is the biggest thing going, and I know it's a Batman is kind of the catalyst for everything. He goes around and recruits, but I would make that thing Wonder Woman crazy. I'd put her in every scene. I'd make her Poochie. She would be the show of Justice League. Strike while the iron is hot. We're not going to get another Wonder Woman appearance for another 2 years after this. So,
I agree with you completely, and I think judging by the trailers, that seems to be the route that they're going. Because I thought Diana had a stronger presence in this trailer than she did in the previous one, and I think you're 100% right on that. I add more Wonder Woman stuff in. I make her more of the center point character, and take advantage of that while you can.
Yeah, she's straight up iconic at this point. So I'm gonna I'll let it rest at that. I'm very excited to see, but I'm scared at the same time.
Right, exactly. That's putting it perfect. And kind of to wrap up the Wonder Woman discussion, she can be kind of like that connective tissue, the way that Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark is in the Avengers movies, where he's everybody gets their moments, but he's kind of that. His presence is always there, and it's always having an impact on whatever's going on. So yeah, very cool. But I guess we should get to this slate of DC movies. Nick, looks like we've got announced Shazam, Suicide Squad 2.
Yep.
The Batman.
Yes.
Justice League Dark. Flashpoint or Flashpoint. Wonder Woman 2. Green Lantern Corps. And Batgirl on this list of announcements that were made at SDCC. To Todd's point, not on this list appears to be Nightwing, which has been announced and has a director.
Let me tell you why I think we don't see Nightwing. I think they're fast-tracking the Titans show, TV show. I think they want to introduce that character slowly. Maybe Nightwing will be inserted here in a little bit, but if you have them debuting fairly close to one another, that could be somewhat of a unique situation. We have The Flash on TV 3 or 4 years before the movie came out. But if you have Nightwing and the Titans and Nightwing and the movie come out and they're competing versions, one's going to lose. So maybe that's part of the motivation. Plus, they want to set up this Batman miniverse first. And I have heard talk about that because you're going to get also not on this list is the Harley and Ivy movie, right? Gotham Girls. Mm-hmm. So that's not on there. There's also been talk of a Joker and Harley movie, but nothing official. So we have to go by this list as far as official films. Are these in a chronological order, or are they just kind of in a list?
It seems like they're just they're just randomly.
Because you would have to think. I mean, the last one on the list is Batgirl, and you would have to think that is probably happening before Green Lantern Corps, because at least Batgirl has a director attached.
Yeah, and they're going to want to give Joss Whedon his reward as soon as possible after bailing them out on Justice League reshoots. So, have you guys heard anybody attached to Batgirl's casting as of late?
No one. I have heard, they were thinking about going with an unknown, which I think might be a smart move on their part. You kind of have to trust Joss though to do pretty much anything at this point. I think he's earned all the benefit of the doubt, something that a lot of these other DCEU filmmakers have not at this point. That's
true. I would kiss his ass all over the place if I were DC.
Yes.
And I hope Jeff Johns and he are getting along just fine. I think that could be a pretty unique pairing for the better. So, yeah. I have heard Emma Watson attached to Batgirl recently, and I don't know how I feel about that.
That seems really, really fantasy casting. Just
I don't disagree. I don't. But also, Warner Brothers is they're a big studio, and they do love their stars, and they love bringing people from other franchises into things. But
to be fair, that's kind of the approach that Marvel has taken with their universes, bringing in kind of established actors. I mean,
right?
Maybe with the exception of Chris Hemsworth, all of the Avengers leads were pretty well-known actors from other roles.
I would say Chris Evans wasn't that well-known.
Chris Evans wasn't a huge deal at the time of getting the Captain America gig. I mean, you'll point to Johnny Storm, but those movies were kind of they were what they were. Is the best
right?
The
but I mean,
way.
He wasn't an unknown. Is my point. They weren't. It wasn't Chris Reeve.
Fine, but he was a moderate level star.
Yeah,
not like,
and Hemsworth too had a crucial role in the first Star Trek.
Right. Whereas someone like Emma Watson is like one of the more recognizable female faces in Hollywood at this point.
Well, sure, yeah. But I mean, Scarlett Johansson was too. So
sure. Yeah, I would like them to go with an unknown as far as their direction, and not perhaps Summer Glau, which Joss Whedon will never be able to detach himself from her as far as casting announcements.
Joss has his although with Joss attached, I guess that does increase the chances of Nathan Fillion being cast as every superhero who's ever lived. So
yeah, I'd love to see him get an honorary role in the DCU as a deceased character, or a Golden Age legacy character on a poster or something. Like, it's never going to happen anymore.
The original Star Spangled Kid.
Yeah. So No, we should get on to the other big announcement from San Diego Comic-Con, and that the Flash movie has been reshuffled into a Flashpoint film. Now, is that just the title, or does Flashpoint mean that they are going to reboot the DCEU 4 movies in? I don't know, but
reboot is such an interesting word because it all depends on what that word means to you. Reboot, to me, tends to mean you throw out everything that came before and you start fresh. And I don't think that's what Flashpoint is going to be. But I
think there is a hard reboot and there's a soft reboot.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I believe, personally, that a soft reboot is coming.
Well, I'd be interested to see, just because they haven't established all the corners of this particular universe so far. They have the Suicide Squad, they have Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and then the JLA, which, what are they going to tweak? They're going to change the results of one of the films, or they're going to make
I don't think that it's so much tweaking continuity wise. I think what this is going to be able to do, and this is just my opinion, I think what you're going to see is a couple of things. I think one, Greg, I think on last week's show, you and I discussed 2 mystery 2020 dates that DC had staked out that would seem to be, among the first of their upcoming projects. I think Flashpoint is going to wind up being one of those projects. I think they're going to want to get this off the ground sooner rather than later. 2, I think what you're going to see is it's going to allow them to kind of pick and choose what they like about the current DCEU and what they don't like about the current DCEU. Throw out what they don't like, keep what they like. It'll be kind of like when Flashpoint in the comics happened. I mean, if you recall, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern and the Batman universes were kind of left to their own devices to a certain extent. Granted, they had to, fit everything into the stupid 5-year timeline or whatever, but for the most part, continuity-wise, they were left intact. And I think something like the Wonder Woman film franchise, and I think possibly Aquaman will be something that they will, be looking to keep intact post Flashpoint. I think the other thing they will allow it to do, despite his comments to the contrary, because let's not take everything the dude says at face value. He also insisted he was going to direct the Batman once the script was right, and we saw how that turned out. I still believe that Affleck is probably going to be looking for the door after the Batman, and I think this will enable you to recast that character and possibly de-age him and have it at least make some level of sense if it happens in a post Flashpoint universe. So I think a lot of these films that we're looking at are going to be ones that take place or come out after Flashpoint has happened, and you don't really have to worry about reconciling something like Green Lantern Corps or Batgirl probably happened before Flashpoint, or reconciling something like Green Lantern Corps or Shazam with their previous incarnations, because there will not have been a previous incarnation.
Okay. So, like I said at the very beginning of this segment, we know so little about what they're going to actually do. We have names, we have tent poles, so to speak. I mean, if I had my druthers, you'd come out of Flashpoint. Maybe it's just giving you a glimpse into the Flashpoint universe where you have what if. Problem is, we don't have the actual Flash story, so what would he be changing at this point? But I digress. I mean, we see this speculative looks at Negan as Thomas Wayne and because
Maggie as Joe.
Maggie as Martha, and a lot of us have read Flashpoint. Not all of us have, but the TV version of Flashpoint was just him trying to get his mom back. But what would he be trying to do in the DC universe? Give Superman his smile back, or make Superman
Superman
has a very legitimate knee injury. Thank you very much, Todd.
Well, the clip we see in the Justice League trailer of him putting his hand on the glass implies that you still have the mom-dad subplot, and so I would assume he's probably going to be trying to fix that and wind up having unintended consequences, kind of the way they handled it in the animated adaptation, Flashpoint Paradox.
It does, though. I think if that's your first Flash story that you tell on the big screen, I think that loses something. I think that's a little bit like telling the death of Superman in your second Superman movie.
It's like telling The Dark Knight Returns before you tell Batman Year One.
Oh, I agree with that, but I think Flashpoint is going to be used as a means to an end rather than this big culmination of Flash's story.
here's my issue with your suggestion, and I'm not saying you're wrong because it could very well happen. Here's my concern with that. That is easy to do on the comic book page for the most part. I think that is really asking a lot of movie audiences to try to like cherry pick certain parts of continuity and tell them that this counts but this doesn't. I don't know if that works in a movie universe. We've never really seen anything like that.
Well, we have in the X-Men universe, and it's not necessarily been that successful. You have people that are going to see an X-Men film no matter what, but as far as the X universe in general, they've been kind of Days of Future Past was outstanding, but it rebooted the continuity and in a way that not unlike what Flashpoint could do, and
now nobody's really sure where
nobody has any
goes.
idea what's going on. Yeah, people will see an entertaining film based on its own merits, like Deadpool or Logan, but the X-Men name, I think, may have been a little, well, I don't understand what's going on. I guess the casual moviegoer, I'm saying, may not be all in on these continuity fixes. Suicide Squad 2 should be happening pretty quickly, I would think, but do you think DC has any, not DC, but Warner Brothers, has any remorse or things they'd like to tweak about the first one, things they'd like to change? Because it was certainly financially profitable despite what all of us thought of it when we saw it. I'm not going to watch that over and over. And we've talked about it not being a movie for us, but gosh darn it, I'd love if a movie skewed at younger teens still has something for us to enjoy out of the film.
Right.
Besides,
I think they're going to overhaul it pretty heavily, especially if you believe the rumors about David Ayer's potential exit from the DCEU as a whole.
The very fact that he's not attached to the film, I think, is an indicator that they are looking to change it. Granted, they did have him attached to write the Harley movie, but at the same time,
that wasn't announced officially at Comic-Con either. So that's one of those things you have to wonder what the status of that is.
And I'm not looking as much into that as you, Nick, just because they left Nightwing out as well, and that's one that we know that they're working on. They just didn't announce, so I still feel like the Harley movie is going to happen. And that's the one character out of the movie that most people thought that Ayer did a good job with, other than.
I believe the Harley movie is happening. I just don't think it's happening with David Ayer.
Or with him as producer or something. I mean, she was probably the most successful characterization, and she wasn't all that great, but she was fun to look at, and she enjoyed the part, and I think they know they have money in Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that, there was a report that came out actually tonight as we're recording this that the roles of both Zack Snyder and David Ayer are going to be diminishing further and further as the DCEU continues. Don't know if that's true, by the way. This is a purely speculative report from not the most necessarily the most reliable of sources, but they acted pretty confident. It was Mashable it came from, and they acted pretty confident in their report. So if that's the case, I think even though Suicide Squad was very financially successful, I think that in Warner Brothers' minds, it's the law of diminishing returns, where over the course of time, if a movie doesn't get the word of mouth that you're looking for, you're eventually going to see goodwill erode. Although, I will say this as well, it's an interesting phenomenon, guys, because when I've talked to a lot of people in kind of outside our hardcore comic book fan geek community that watched the movie, they loved it. So maybe I'm off base. Maybe they don't need to change anything about it. We're just I don't know, aged out of the bracket. I don't know.
Well, it was also critically savaged as well. So I mean, there's something to that.
Sure. But at the end of the day, if it's critically savaged and it makes $1 billion or whatever it made, $800 million, does the studio ultimately care that much? Yeah. I don't know.
Right, but I think something to Todd's point about, can you pull that off multiple times in a row? Because even with the Transformers films, which are a great example of making obscene amounts of money while being critically savaged, it's been the law of diminishing returns with those, where they the most recent one, I think, was by far the lowest opening weekend in franchise history. And so I think there's something where you need that positive word of mouth and you need that positive buzz about the quality of the film to speak to a wide audience rather than just the hot topic crowd, as I call them.
And you need to build in rewatchability to these films to, get more of the details and just dwell on and build anticipation for the second one. I mean, I don't know.
You don't want to. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't imagine wanting to rewatch any of Suicide Squad except for, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds here or there.
Yeah, you don't want to create something like Daredevil where it makes money at the time and people seem to like it. General audiences tend to like it at the time, but then in 10 years, everybody's looking back on it as an example of bad superhero filmmaking. You don't want that to happen.
Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, which I feel is kind of I'm getting deja vu from that and some of the DC EU stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I know people that were really high on Batman versus Superman just after watching it live or watching it in the theater and then going a couple weeks later, I guess it wasn't all that good. And then understanding that, yes, they put out a superior version in digital and in Blu-ray, but had the damage been done at that point?
Right.
How many people saw that as the first version of that?
Very few. Yeah, very few.
And if you see the movie at the theater and you hate it, who that sees the movie at the theater and doesn't like the movie is going to go out and buy the special edition Blu-ray or DVD? Not very many. So not many people, or not as many people, get to see that the better cut of the movie that we've all seen and we all enjoyed. So it's certainly an issue. But obviously, right now they're riding high on the success of Wonder Woman. So I think they feel like they have goodwill going, but all it's going to take is Justice League to bomb, and all that goes out the window. Now, contrarily, what if Justice League is a massive hit, like I think we all hope that it is? Does that change anything going forward for the DCEU?
If it's a massive hit in terms of both a reception standpoint and a financial standpoint, yeah, you go forward. Because I mean, the thing is, you got to remember, Batman v Superman, in terms of just sheer box office receipts, made a lot of money. Now, compared to its budget, it didn't make a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think
and the studio's expectations for what it was going to make. Right.
But I would argue that the thing that hurt BVS more than even the box office returns was the word of mouth. It was just a seemingly never-ending barrage of negative press and negative talk surrounding that movie. And I think what DC has got to do is they have got to win the fan community over the same way they did with Wonder Woman. I mean, the fan community by and large was willing to get out there and support Wonder Woman after it came out and talk it up to everyone and tell everyone how good it was and go to bat for that movie the way that the larger community typically does for most of the Marvel films. And I think you need to build in that fan goodwill that they have not done on a consistent basis to this point.
And do you think they've not poisoned the well, but is Affleck as Batman is just not going to work on a long-term basis, or are there just enough people biased against that whole thing based on the mixed results of BVS? Is this something that can be salvaged?
I would argue that the problems with BVS are a lot like the problems with Green Lantern from years ago, in that if I sat down to make a list of the issues with the film, Affleck's performance wouldn't be anywhere near like the top 10 or top 15 issues with that film. So I feel like Affleck gets thrown in and it's not really a fair assessment in terms of what the actual root cause of the problem is.
Yeah, no, I really liked Affleck's performance. I think there
I did too.
There are, to Todd's point though, I think Todd's saying that there are many people who were biased against that casting going in and have kind of used the film's flaws as a way to increase that. Plus, with it, I mean, the guy just can't seem to catch a break in terms of the press. Like, it feels like the Hollywood press, for whatever reason, has a new Ben Affleck is having an emotional breakdown story every few weeks. So I think that is kind of a weird situation. Now, here's something. I know Nick mentioned possibly if Ben is to leave. And Ben, we do need to report, guys, that Ben Affleck at San Diego Comic-Con was one of the big moments that happened. Was he came out and refuted a report that he would be leaving the DCEU. He said that he is on for the Batman is excited to work with Matt Reeves, the director, and plans to be Batman as long as they'll have him. I hope that's the case because I think he did a good job in BVS. But if he leaves after the Batman, I actually, and this is my pure bias speaking, Todd, I don't know how you would feel about this. I know how Nick would feel about it, I'm pretty sure, but I wouldn't want them to de-age Bruce Wayne. I would want them to let Nightwing, if it's an older Nightwing, grow into the role and be the new Batman. What would you make of that scenario?
Oh, I don't know. If you don't have a Robin and then you get Nightwing for one movie and suddenly, boom, he's Batman. I don't know that would work for me. But maybe if you get a little bit more development than that in team books. And I mean, Dick Grayson as Batman was very DC fan centric. Some of the great Batman stories of the last 10 years were Dick Grayson as Batman, but I don't know that you don't have Dick Grayson in the modern, what's the word I'm looking for, rubric of everything. You don't have him as somebody who's watched him grow up and grow into the role. So it'd be kind of, it wouldn't be too different than John Paul Valley becoming Batman in 1992 on a cinematic scale. Just saying, you did it for one movie, here you go, you get to be Batman now.
Right, and from a casual fan perspective, I would argue that, like, the very concept of Nightwing is something that has to be established on screen first. I think you have to introduce, the larger general, the general audience to who this guy is, what he's all about, before you just throw him into being Batman. Like, I'm not as opposed to the idea of Dick Grayson as Batman on film as Greg thinks I am. I am opposed to doing it in a rushed fashion.
Just like I'm opposed to Flashpoint being there before you even have a Flash origin
And that is completely understandable. I get where you guys are coming from on that one.
So, yeah, and it's like I said at the beginning, we don't know anything yet. We could just speculate.
Oh, absolutely.
And
all we can go on is, and we can go on precedent, and the precedent is that they did the Death of Superman in 2 movies.
Yep.
Yep.
But
that was a negative, And
absolutely.
We are hoping that they would learn from their mistakes going forward.
Yeah, right down to even almost you could even argue doing the Resurrection in the same movie because they showed the dirt moving at the end, which I maintain was an unnecessary move.
All right, I've got something for you. What if Dr. Manhattan is behind Flashpoint?
Whoa. Do you think they'd actually go there on the big screen?
Mind blown. Boom. No, they're not going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine that big blue wiener just filling the screen at a PG-13 Justice League movie.
Well, all the Watchmen had three. The actors, they all had 3 movie contracts they've got to fulfill. So
interesting. I didn't know that.
No, I made that up. Also,
Todd taking a page out of my book.
And I used to joke that Man of Steel wasn't the first DCEU film. It was Watchmen. It was Zack Snyder laying the seeds for a future tie-in to something that hasn't even happened in the comics just yet, but it is happening.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's interesting. So one of the things we've been doing with the other segments is throwing out a kind of a lightning round question at the end about anticipation coming up. Of this whole slate of movies that's coming up, which one are you most excited for, and which one do you have the most level of concern for? And I'll start with you on this one, Nick.
Are we going off of just the what slate exactly? Just the ones that are in production, or the ones that were announced?
The officially announced movies.
I am most anticipating still, and probably will forever, because it may never see the light of day. I'm going to go with Green Lantern Corps as my most anticipated, and I'm still gonna go with Justice League as the one I am the most concerned about.
And let's stretch that into just the in-production movies as well. Which of the in-production movies, or the movies that have someone attached to them at this point, are you most anticipating?
Aquaman, just because I think I like everything we've seen of the character, and I like what James Wan has been putting out there thus far. So I'm going to go Aquaman as my most anticipated, and Justice League is the one I'm most concerned about.
And same questions to you, Todd. I'll invert the order because it makes more sense. I'll say, of the movies that are currently in production or have directors, stars attached to them. Which one are you most excited about, and which one are you most concerned about?
I am most excited for Art Aquaman, and I am most concerned about Justice League of America, or just Justice League. It's not of America at all. It's just Justice League, just because. All those reasons.
What if they did a Justice League Antarctica movie? Wouldn't that be some shit?
Yeah, what if they did it first? Because it'd be just like them.
Yes. Now, let me extend the other question to you. Of all of the announced DC movies, which one are you most excited about, and which do you have the most trepidation for?
Believe it or not, I'm most excited for The Batman, because we've heard it's going to be more of a noir take on the character, and Affleck doing that with a good director who won't just let him get away with anything he wants to do could be very interesting. Matt Reeves, right? That's their director. And,
that's right.
And, he's got a good track record and seems to be dedicated to getting this done. So I'm excited about that because I would like to see, how long has it been since Dark Knight Rises? Was that 2011?
12.
Yeah.
12.
So we're, by the time this is out, it'll be eight years or so away from that. So that's good. Also, I'm most afraid of, or I have the most concerns about Shazam. Oh, wait, I just turned into a big red guy in a red suit.
or you could have turned into Black Adam, which would have meant you would turn into The Rock, which would have meant you were the one that insulted Sacramento all those years ago, you jerk.
I booed and I cheered at the same time when I saw that because it was the best heel promo I've ever seen and the most electricity I've ever felt in an arena was that actual Rock concert. So, yeah, doing Shazam, we just don't know enough about what it's going to be, and I haven't read a good Shazam comic in about 20 years, I don't think, even though the Jeff Johns backups in the New 52 were okay. I didn't get enough of the story to really get excited about it. So I'm really concerned about that, and historically the character on screen has been very, very Superman analogous, so why do it if you're not going to do something different with it? I think if they do something too different with it, it could be very bad. Also, without having The Rock, who's been talking up Black Adam and doing all this free publicity for the movie 5 years before it's even been made, and attached at least to the original one, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I would like him to be a part of the Shazam movie. Oh man, I just changed back. I'd like him to be a part of it from the beginning, not something that feels like an add-on cinematically.
All great points. I think for me, I am, of the ones that are in production, I'm most excited about Aquaman as well, and I am most concerned about Justice League, I think, although Suicide Squad 2 would certainly be in contention for that. And of the announcements, obviously I'm most excited about Green Lantern Corps. I still believe that there's no excuse for why that hasn't already become one of the most popular sci-fi superhero franchises, or sci-fi film franchises in the world, because it lends itself to that so much, but it just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. And the one that I'm most concerned about, I'm going to echo all your thoughts, Todd, Shazam. I think you brought up a lot of good points. I think what Shazam should be is a movie that appeals very much to families. Kids, it should be aimed at kids, but families should be able to enjoy it. I'm not sure if they're capable of pulling that off. We'll see. But that being said, Todd, thank you so much for joining us tonight, on taking time out of your day. And where can people find you on social media, and do you have anything else that you would like to promote before we sign off?
First off, folks, you need to like the Place to Be Nation comics page on Facebook. You need to join us there. Get involved. It is a group you can search and just ask to join. We talk about all these shows, and when there's breaking news, we put it up there. Plus, everybody is welcome. We've never turned around or kicked anybody out of the group unless they were obviously a Russian spam bot. So,
right. And even them, hey, we're open to ideas, comrades.
Right. I mean, he was on the Giffen DeMatteis Justice League team of the 80s. They had a Russian spam bot on the team. So I'm going to say you can follow me there, and then I'm on Twitter at Todd Weber Guitar, but I'm working on figuring out how to add a Conversation Comics Twitter address for me that's comics only. None of the bad Sacramento Kings opinions or somewhat irate political musings that you would find on my personal page. So, yeah, that's in the works. I just got to figure out how to do it.
Very good. And obviously, you can contact us on Twitter. I'm at gphillips8652. Nick is at nickduke87. You can drop us a line at gregp@placetobenation.com, nickd@placetobenation.com. Although no one ever does. It's the loneliest email address on the internet, folks. And also echoing everything Todd said about Place to Be Nation Comics. We have a good community there. A lot of people check out our posts there and everything. And also, which was mentioned earlier, the Discuss option that is now on the Place to Be Nation website. You can leave comments on the actual articles that post with our podcasts, and we'll certainly join in the discussion there. Other than that, we got a lot of cool things coming your way. Place to Be Nation Pop Theater is in development. We're working on some post-production on that and should have that ready to go by the end of August. And in addition to that, we got coming your way, Thor: The Dark World, the return of our Hard Travelers for Hire series, where Mr. Weber will be joining us again for that. What else do we have coming the people's way?
Yeah, so we're going to push that long-promised Long Book Hunters on the Long Bow Hunters back into August. We got that coming up in the second week of August. We're going to go off the page with we're going to shift plans once more. We shifted plans, then we shifted them again. Now we're shifting them back to the original plan because Greg was right. In August, we're going to do Off the Page on Green Lantern and Emerald Knights in honor of the, what is it, Greg, the 5th anniversary of Roddy Piper's passing? Is that accurate? 10th? 5th? 10th? What?
Not,
something?
Neither. Certainly not 10th. I would love to answer your question, and I will.
That was you pitched it based on it being the anniversary of his death. Damn it!
It is the anniversary. It is the 3-year anniversary of his death. Actually,
there you go.
He died July 31st, 2015.
And so we're doing that. So that's what you got to look forward to here in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. Another convergence of our interests. So with that being said, hope you've enjoyed the podcast tonight. Thanks to Tim Capel, Russell Sellers, Jennifer Smith, and of course, Todd Weber, the manager, for taking time out of their days to help us out with kind of admittedly a thrown together episode that we weren't anticipating. With that being said, join us next week. Go out, buy some comics, folks.
It's the greatest show on Place to Be Nation. Certainly a unique situation. Ooh, Hard-Traveling Fanboys. 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 Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Thank you.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Oh, they're pretty, they're Skittles.
They're indivisible. They're microwavable. Ooh, Hard-Traveling Fanboy.
Are you going to give me fucking anything on this show, or why are we even here?
Listen up, you slap dick. Let me answer the fucking question. Give me a minute. Well, Klondike Bill told me that if he ever came across a woman who was extremely clean and well kept, he would tell her to put on a pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt, go take a 2-mile jog, and then come back and see him when she was done.
Thank you.